me pull up the chat.
All right, we're live. All right, we were just talking, so we can kind of pick up that discussion. We were just talking about, how we get a little bit obsessive compulsive about our record libraries and the condition of our records, the condition of our record sleeves, the condition of our inner sleeves. Are you very obsessive about the type of outer sleeve that you use? I've been trying to convert all of mine to the 4mm outer sleeve. I'm not going to pretend that all my records are that way, but I certainly have kind of seen the light as far as that goes. I used to just go with the 3mm, and now I don't like that cloudiness that I had on a lot of my outer sleeves. I've seen how Josh's collection looks. I've seen how Aaron's collection looks, just how pristine those records look coming off the shelf. And I'm like, I want that. I want my records to look that way. And it's a bit of an investment. I'm not going to lie, when I go and I'm purchasing outer sleeves or inner sleeves, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, well, how many records you could buy for what it's costing you to purchase these outer sleeves? But I just think they look so, I love when you pull it off the shelf and it looks just in a pristine condition. And Josh, I know, having looked through your library, like that's the gold standard for me is that's always in my head. Like, I want my records to look like Josh and Aaron's. Well,
I'll tell you that, before we joined, Brandon said something that was so amazing. And he was talking about going to his collection, and it gives him such a sense of joy that he pulls it out and it's in mint condition or VG plus. And I feel the same way. My goal with my record collection is to recreate the experience of picking it up brand new, right? Like going to the record store in 1988 and picking up that Motley Crue Dr. Feelgood record, and it looks as mint as it did in the store that day. And that every time I pull that record, that's how it's going to look. It's going to have the hype sticker. It's going to be in the 4mm. It's going to have a MoFi sleeve, or it's going to have an anti-static sleeve. The record is not going to have scuffs. That's why I collect records. I love the sound quality. Don't get me wrong. The sound quality is superb. But the nostalgia of record collecting is a big part to me. So if it's beat up and the record is not in great shape, it does take away from the joy of my collection. Plus, it's funny because I used to have a wall of CDs back in my old house, and I understood that I could hide those away or I could put them in books or something, but I wanted people to see the wall of CDs. You know what I mean? It was look at this, look at my wall of CDs. And it's the same thing for record collection. You can't hide it. Right? You can't hide your record collection. So when people come through, especially someone like you, Jeff, who I admire so much, and we're brothers, you know what I mean? When you get excited about a record and you pull out of my collection, man, that makes it all worth it. If Brandon was coming tomorrow, I would be like, yes, this is going to be awesome. He's going to see my collection, I'm sure I'd feel the same way if I was going to his house. It's having someone see your collection and I'm like, wow, dude, this is cool. It's you live for it. And same thing for you, Chris, when you visited. Obviously it was awesome being able to flip through my collection and when we listened to Peter Gabriel's So, I was so excited. I probably was hiding it, but just thinking oh, here's two of my best friends and we're sitting here listening to one of my favorite records. I was enjoying every second of it.
What was cool for me, and Chris and I had this shared experience as well, because we've seen Aaron, we got to pick through Aaron's collection, we got to, browse through your collection, Josh. But for me, I don't know anybody. None of my friends collect records. None of my family collects records. So for me to be able to go into somebody's music room or their man cave and be able to see for myself their setup, their CD collection, how do your cassettes look at all your vinyl, how do you have your box set set up, and I don't know, Chris, if this was the way for it was for you, but I really, it was such a joy kind of walking into each of your music rooms and oh wow, I want to start putting my cassettes that way, or I want to do my box sets like Josh has. It's really cool that way because I don't know anybody else who has a collection like, you guys do. And so to be able to kind of come into your space and be able to, kind of have the keys to the kingdom, as it were, a little bit, and see your music room is very cool.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, because for all of us, we've all talked about this before, but none of us outside of the VC and outside of this, our friends, are into what we do. Like you try to describe to them you collect records or you're into music, and they're like, oh, that sounds really neat or whatever, but they don't get it. And like you said, Jeff, it's nice to share that with other people who have the same passion as you, but not only that, but to see it as well. And then you don't feel like you're freaking crazy and that you're the only one
Right.
who does it. But I want to go back to what Josh was saying, because, and I've told you guys this before, but I'm in a 2-bedroom apartment right now. So I've got all my records here, but my CDs, I only have some of them, and they're literally in my kids' closets. So when I eventually own a house again in a bigger place, I want my music to be the focal point of the house. Like, it's not going to be back in a little corner or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want it to be like when you walk in, you're going to see the music, because that's who I am. Like, you're going to see a wall of CDs. You're going to see a wall of vinyl. And right off the bat, you're going to want to talk to me about it, whether you collect it or not, because it's just going to be, I mean, when you walk into any of your houses, that's what people see, and it strikes up a conversation right away.
Yeah. Well, I think that's very cool. That's why I like room tour videos.
Yeah.
Yes, love them.
And I love, and sometimes it's funny because I'll even pause the video and like try to get like they always move too fast for me, but I'm always like pausing the video, trying to see what box sets do they have, or how do they have their cassettes organized, or it's always for me kind of I feel like such a freak that way, where I'm like, oh, what are you looking at? Somebody's CD collection, it always seems like so, I don't know, ridiculous. But anyway, we are here tonight. We got 4 of us here, and like advertised, what we want to talk about is we want to open it up to a Q&A. We've always had kind of a theme or a topic going into our live streams that we've done on Thursday night. But tonight we've had the suggestion made before about just throwing it open to everybody who's participating in our chat. If you have any questions, either for us collectively, for us individually, is there anything that you want to throw out there as a topic to talk about? Do you have any questions about our collections, about our music listening habits? This is going to be a wide open forum. Anything that you want to ask us, we are here to be of service to you. Josh, are you able to kind of monitor the comments that are coming in?
I will. It's just pleasantries, just people.
What was that?
People saying hi to each other at this
Oh,
point.
okay, cool.
Yeah, that's really what it is. We have 15 people in the chat. But I do have a question for Brandon. So, Brandon, when you started collecting records, what was your first Grail that you acquired? Was there a record that you're like, man, this is the record that I need? So not like the latest Grail, but when you first started, what was your first Grail?
Yeah, geez. I think my first, because when I first started collecting, nothing had anything to do with value. So there really wasn't Grail. It was just this album I love, this album I love. But I think the first one I remember dropping like money on that I thought like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, was Dave Matthews Band's These Crowded Streets.
Okay.
And at that time it was an absolute near mint copy, and I think I paid $195 for it. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a real collector now. Like, it was one of those type of feelings. But that's the first one I remember kind of felt like I'm doing like real collecting here, because I wanted this thing. I found one. I just paid $200 for an album.
In the course of 6 months for me, way back in the 90s, I bought Samhain Initium first press, which I spent like I think $100 on, which now is worth a lot more. November Coming Fire orange press, which I spent $300 on, and then Samhain Initium black with white streaks I spent $500 on, and Danzig 3 first pressing that I spent $200 on, and that's when I knew I had lost my mind. Like I was like, what am I doing? Like I spent like I just got the bug of like, before that it was just buying new records, you know. In the 80s and 90s I just bought new records, but then it was like, I need to go buy these records, and that's what turned me obsessed with, where I realized, wow, I blew like $1,000 in the last 6 months on these 5 records. It was crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah. How about you guys, Chris and Jeff?
Like what, one of our first sort of
first one that you like, maybe you blew a little bit extra money on, or you spent more than you thought you would.
I mean, when I started collecting records again, because I had I had records when I was a kid, but probably like a lot of us, I didn't really take care of them or anything. I just sort of played them. I didn't even think of them as like collector's items or whatever. They were just something to play on my turntable. But when I started collecting records again, I kind of like Brandon. I don't think I was thinking in terms of collecting yet. I was almost just trying to get some of the records that for lack of a better term, wanted. I mean, and for you guys, you'll know this, but I started with the SST label. So I started picking up all the Black Flag I could get, and anything on the SST label I was trying to get, SWA and all that stuff. And so really I was kind of just building that SST library, and then from there I sort of branched out. But it was kind of like you guys know, it's sort of it's never ending though, because one band will lead you to this other band. And then I started looking through the SST label. I'm like, oh, I didn't know about this band. Let me look up. Oh, they've got 5 records. All right. So there's 5 more records I'm going to get. And it sort of just started to spiral from there.
How are you, Jeff?
Yeah. For me, when I started record collecting, I didn't really think of albums in terms of Grails. I just knew I wanted, as many albums by my favorite artists as I could find, and the only, I didn't really think in terms of, oh, I want an OG pressing of this record or an OG press, with the exception of the Beatles, because with Beatles, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm looking for, but like, I couldn't tell you, is this a first pressing of Led Zeppelin 1 or is it a repress? I couldn't tell you. I had no idea. So I just, but I certainly, I've never really kind of ever had the budget to kind of go after a, $200 record or anything like that. For me, my Grails have always been like the Beatles, like Let It Be Naked, a vinyl copy of that, or, some overseas pressing, Japanese pressings of some of the original UK albums. But I'm certainly not like, oh, I want OMD's first album, an original press, and the show. Like, I don't care. I just want the record, or like a Depeche Mode's first record. I need the OG. Like, I really don't. As long as I've got a clean copy that sounds good, like the Beatles stuff. Yeah, absolutely. I want first presses of all their American albums and stuff like that. But I really don't have too many Grails that are all that expensive.
It's funny though, Josh, you had mentioned November Coming Fire, and I don't know if you remember, I used to have a first pressing of that album, but I sold it, and this is why. On the first song, I think it's that instrumental track, there's a lock groove on the first track. So your needle constantly almost skips and never moves from that spot. So I looked it up on Discogs, and I guess that was a problem with the first press. There was a lock groove in some of those, but I hated that so much because you literally would have to pick up the needle and move it to hear the rest of the song, that I ended up selling it, and I got a bootleg of the album. but I enjoy it so much more, even though it's not a first press, because it doesn't have that lock groove anymore, where somebody else would have kept it and said, oh, this was just, part of the pressing, I'm going to keep it. For whatever reason, that just bothered me.
Yeah, I had a first. Oh, sorry, man. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say they had 2 Sam Hain records at that record store I went to this past week. November Coming Fire was not one of them, but
yeah. I was going to say I had a press of Jar of Flies that did that, and I ended up selling it because I couldn't take it.
It's annoying.
Right. So the first question we have is, as the table turns, says, whose collection in the group are you most envious of? I will tell you that I'm envious of all your collections for different reasons, but Aaron's collection for me is just so massive. And that guy whips out, like, you'll be like, oh, I like this album. And he's like, well, I have a Japanese press and I have a first press and I have a repress. Like, he's just got everything. But go ahead, guys. Whose collection are you most envious of?
In the VC period, or just here in the group?
Here in the group, the initial Horsemen, including Gary and Aaron.
Gosh.
Well,
go ahead,
sorry,
Chris.
Brandon.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, I have not seen Brandon's collection in person, but from what I've seen because you've done tours that I've seen, and I've heard from, I think the youngest members of the VC were at your place. You guys are spinning records. But even just from what I see in this camera angle here, you've created a record store in your place. And I know we were talking before we started filming tonight that whatever record you're going to pull out of your collection, Brandon, is going to be like in perfect condition. So I'm definitely, and I've never seen your collection in person. Maybe someday I will, but I'm definitely envious of that idea that you created a record store where you live.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate it. And that's exactly the mindset that I've always had with putting my music stuff together, is really trying to make it look and feel like a store, like not just saying it as an afterthought. That's actually my intention. I stopped by the store this afternoon and they had this little CD rack they weren't using sitting on top of this table. I mean, it only holds like 14 CDs, but I'm like, that's a cool little display rack. And I was like, dude, you willing to sell this? And he gave it to me for $5. And it's like, that's one more thing that'll make a little display that'll look like a music store. So I definitely love that. But yeah, thanks, Chris.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I feel like, like you say, Chris, I've not been able to, I've not had the pleasure of being in Brandon's music room and seeing like his entire collection, or Gary's room. I mean, I've seen what they've shown on the VC. So I feel like I'm kind of biased just towards Aaron and Josh because I've seen their entire collection, their entire room. So I'm just gonna because I don't think it's fair having only seen what you guys have shown in the VC. I'm just gonna narrow it to Josh and Aaron. And I'm gonna say Josh because Aaron's music room is amazing. Aaron's collection is amazing, but I feel like, Josh has more. I think our musical interests, Josh, I think are a little more closely aligned than maybe Aaron. If I were like a metal fan, and not that I'm not a metal fan, but if I were like a hardcore metal fan, I think it'd be easy because Aaron's got so much metal and classic rock and I like I say, I mean, it is so close. The only reason why I'm picking Josh is because those Doors, that Doors box that they have, those analogs, or, you've got like the whole Black Sabbath, like that box set, or you've got, all those fantastic Dawes albums. You've got, I think we have a lot that we overlap on musically. And Josh, for every album that I like, Josh has got like a way better copy than I have, or he's got it on MoFi, or he's got a half-speed press. And I'm always thinking like, oh, look at this album I've got. And then, I look at Josh's collection. It's like, oh yeah, I've got 4 copies of that. I got 2 MoFis. I got a half-speed master. I got all, or I've got a copy in the box set. I'm like, oh shit, So I'm just going to say, Aaron, Aaron's collection's amazing. And I'm jealous as hell of Aaron's collection. And I almost said Aaron because of that Beatles box set that he's got, those analog records that he has. That's simply amazing. But yeah, I mean, Aaron, it's so hard because they're both, their music rooms are incredible and their collections are obviously sprawling and growing and all of that. But I love both your collection. I love all your guys' collections, actually. I'm jealous. If I'm going to be truthful, anytime you guys show anything out of your collection, there's always at least 2 or 3 records where I'm like turning green with envy. Like, I am so jealous you have that. Like today, you did that monkey, you showed those Monkeys records. And I was like, you got changes with the hype sticker, the Rhino version.
And I'm excited. I'm excited about having that. I want to piggyback on what you were.
I'm the only one who's jealous of that record, probably.
Everybody else is like, that's a shit record. But I want to piggyback on what Jeff was saying, because I want to talk about Josh's collection for a second, because when we went out to visit Josh, he has an amazing collection. And Jeff and I were sitting in the hotel room at night, and we started talking about how we're like, I don't think Josh has any shit records in his collection. And so Jeff and we started going back and forth. We were cracking each other's up because we were listing all the crappy albums that we both had in our collection that Josh would never have in his collection. And that kind of spurred both of us to go home after that trip. And I think we both purged a bunch of albums because, hey, we wanted to be like Josh, because we're like, Josh doesn't have any of these crappy records,
It was almost like a one-upmanship contest. Oh, you think that's a crappy album? I'll top you. I've got an even crappier album than that. And then Chris would be like, oh, you think that's crappy? Well, I've got this. And we're almost like trying to like outdo each other with how, crappy our collections were. It was sort of a weird kind of a contest we had.
Like in Jaws when they compare cars, like that kind of thing. Yeah. All right. The next question was, hey guys, I was wondering, what is each of your favorite box sets in your collection? For me, I will tell you that I love my Tom Petty box sets. Tom Petty does such a great job. He's got 3 box sets. He's got the live one. He's got the Wildflowers and he's got another one, which is like American Legend or something. I don't know what it's called, but it's fantastic. But the 2 that I wouldn't part with is definitely my Johnny Cash Unearthed, which is like all the lost songs from the Rick Rubin sessions. I feel like that one is killer. And I really love that Skid Row box set. I really do. I listen to it all the time. But how about you, Brendan? What's your favorite box sets?
My favorite box sets would probably definitely have to be the Bowies. I have all 5 of the Bowie box sets, and the very first one and the last one that just came out, like those 2 just make me so damn happy to own. Love them.
Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, 2 that come to mind where I really think Black Sabbath did a great job when they reissued their albums from the 70s in box set form. I know they didn't do all of them, but I've got Technical Ecstasy and Sabotage, the box sets, and I think they're just really, really well done. But I want to talk about 2 CD box sets I have. I have 2 Buck Owens box sets, and they chronicle like all of his recordings from these certain eras. And they also come with these hardbound books with extensive liner notes, pictures, and everything. I think they're put out by Bear Family Records. I want to say they're like a German company. So yeah, those are some that kind of come to mind.
Awesome. What about you, Jeff?
For me, it would have to be my Beatles mono box set. Analog pressings. Yeah. And the funny thing about that is my wife bought that. I didn't even ask for that box set. She had it on her radar, like she saw it when it came out, and she got it for me. I think it was for either Christmas or my birthday one year. And I don't think I even knew that it existed. She got me the CD box set like the year before, and then the following year when it came out on vinyl, got me that. But those records sound amazing, even though they're mono. But that's how at least the original, 7 albums, the first 7 albums were. meticulously mixed in mono, and then kind of the stereo versions were an afterthought. So the vinyl, that would be my favorite vinyl box set. My favorite CD box set would have to be the Sgt. Pepper 50th anniversary remix, and then all the bonus tracks. Because up till that box set came out, there really were not a lot of Sgt. Pepper outtakes and alternate takes. And I know, I think most of you guys don't really care about that stuff, but as big of a Beatle fan as I am, just to kind of hear the evolution of those songs over the course of those recording sessions was really a revelation. And they had not been available online for download. Most of the Beatles bootlegs, you can find for free online, but very few Sgt. Pepper outtakes existed until that box set came out. So that would be mine.
Two other box sets, and I know Josh has these. I don't know if Brandon does, but the Sam Hain box set I've got, and I've also got the Misfits box set as well.
Yep, those are fantastic.
On the CD side, I didn't think to mention that because the Talking Heads, the box set that comes with the CD on one side and the 5.1 on the other.
Nice.
That's a pretty cool set.
Awesome. Mike's got the spins. Asked if any of us own the Ozzy box set, which I did buy. Did any of you guys buy the Ozzy box set?
No.
I know Brandon was looking for it. Next question, Gazin asked, name one song when listening and playing you put on repeat at least 3 times before listening to something else because you love it so much. I will tell you there's a bunch of songs that I listen to over and over and over again.
Okay.
Sinead O'Connor, Sacrifice, Lana Del Rey, Video Games, Bruce Springsteen, Racing in the Street, Grateful Dead, Wharf Rat. Those are just name a few. I could probably name you 100 more, but there's so many songs that I'm like, I'm obsessed with this song. How about you guys? Brandon, what's yours? Songs you love on repeat?
Oh my gosh. Well, again, just a few of the hundreds. I mean, Shaken by Eddie Money, Hitchhiking by Bruce Springsteen. Gosh, what else? Yeah. There's so freaking many, but those are the 2 that come to mind, basically, because I did that today. That's why I'm thinking about those.
There's so many. I know. How about you, man?
Me? Well, when I'm in like a metal mood, like I really just want to thrash out. I mean, I love Slayer. Slayer has become, a favorite of mine out of the big 4. But there's two tunes. One's off of South of Heaven. It's called Read Between the Lies. That just gets my blood pumping every time I listen to it. And the other one is off of Seasons called War Ensemble. And I know a lot of people, that song I can just keep listening to that tune, over and over again. But yeah, like you were saying, Brandon, there's so many songs because, if we're talking about country music, I love listening to Dwight Yoakam, and he's got a song called The Heart That You Own that I sing along to all the time. So yeah, I mean, I guess it just depends on the genre.
Yeah.
How about you, Jeff? Are there songs that you put on repeat?
I'm going to say Paranoid Android by Radiohead.
Oh, so good.
Song. And I know it's a long song, so I'm going to be sitting there a while listening to that 3 times in a row, but I don't care. There's so much beauty and complexity in that song and melody. And Tom York is just a freaking genius. And I love Radiohead. That's my favorite Radiohead album, my favorite Radiohead song. I could listen to that endlessly on repeat and never get sick of it. And those are the best songs where you can just listen to it over and over. Anytime it comes on, there's certain songs like Stairway to Heaven that comes on the radio, like instantly switching it off. Even though I love Led Zeppelin, I love Led Zeppelin 4. Stairway to Heaven's a great song. That's kind of the cliche that people use, but it's not a song like that. My favorite songs are ones that I never get tired of listening to. She Knows Me Too Well by the Beach Boys. A Day in the Life by the Beatles. There's so many just great songs, but I'm going to go with Paranoid Android.
I love it. Love that album. Love that song. Yeah, totally agree. All right. Let me see if there's any other questions. A lot of people are talking about the Misfits, Chris, saying they wish that box set was on vinyl, which I totally get because it had so many great outtakes.
I'm fine with it on CD.
Yeah. Stephen Nash says Astro Zombies by Misfits is a song that he listens to all the time. Great choice, Jeff, from Mike's Got the Spins. Guys, feel free to ask your questions. Any question that you want down below, and we'll answer them.
I will say I am jealous of Brandon's Ramones box set because he's always got it there. It's always in the camera view, taunting me in the corner, the bottom left corner of his videos, like making fun of me, like, haha, I got the Ramones and you don't.
Is that the Sire years, Brandon?
That's the one that just came out record store days.
Yeah, I need to get that.
So the next question is, Ray wants to know, what was the last LP each of us bought? For me, it was a album from the early 90s called Two Rooms, an Elton John tribute album that had Sinead O'Connor, George Michael, the Beach Boys. It's just Bruce Hornsby, just everybody that was somebody. Genesis is on there. It is fantastic. It was always a grail of mine. I found it, and my heart was beating fast. I couldn't purchase it quick enough. It was one of those deals where, like, I still wanted to look around the store, but I wanted to buy it. How about you, Brandon? What was the last LP you bought?
Last LP I bought was that Airborne box set. Just got that a few days ago.
That thing looked awesome. If you guys haven't seen that, go check out Brandon's video. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, these are two random albums. You can tell from my shirt, I love Michael Nesmith. I never realized this. He created a label. Well, I knew about his Pacific Arts label, but he also created another label called Countryside Records, and he had two artists signed to his label. One was OJ Red Rhodes, who played pedal steel on a lot of the Monkees type stuff. He also played pedal steel on Michael Nesmith solo records. So I got OJ Red Rhodes solo album. I just got that the other day. And the other artist on the Countryside Records label is a guy named Garland Frady, a strange name. He made one album, but both these records are produced by Michael Nesmith, which I thought was pretty cool. But they're sort of 70s. I'll call it like funky country. It's the bass is really up in the mix on these records. Really, really good stuff.
Awesome. Jeff, how about you? What was your last album you bought? You purchased it on vacation, right?
Yeah. Well, this is an album actually that I did purchase it online while I was on vacation. And I already did a video on the ones that I bought at the record store this past week. But we were talking a little bit earlier before we went live. It's an album by Stan Getz and Charlie Bird. It's called Jazz Samba. And the funny story about it is I was at an amusement park a couple of days ago and they were playing it over the loudspeaker in the park. So wherever you go in the park, you could hear music. And I heard this song and I'm like, holy shit, what is this song? And I actually quickly downloaded the Shazam app and was holding my phone up to like the nearest speaker trying to figure out what this song was. And I'm a sucker for bossa nova. I'm a sucker for jazz, but especially, like the Getz Gilberto album and now this Getz Bird album. But there's something, so soothing, so cool to me about bossa nova jazz. And I can't get enough of it. And so I was lucky enough to find it on Amazon. I think it's colored vinyl. It's a repress. I do not care. I'm not chasing after the original. Just to be able to have a great album like that is enough for me. So I know it's not cool, but it
is cool.
If I'm being honest, that's what
that is really cool.
Yeah.
Well, the ladies like bossa nova too.
The ladies.
Yeah.
They do, and if I ever have a cocktail party at my house, I know exactly what I'm going to throw on. And
yeah.
All right, we got some great questions coming up. So Swedish WB asks, "What's your go-to '80s pop album?" That's a really difficult question for me.
Yes,
I love, as the guys know, Peter Gabriel's "So," which I would consider a pop album. I also love George Michael's "Faith." Those Prince Purple Rain, those to me are pop albums, and I absolutely love them. There's probably 100 more, but man, I love Peter Gabriel. So if we consider that pop, that'd probably be my go-to. How about you, Brandon?
Jeez, I got to stop going first each time because I don't have enough time to process.
You want me to mix it up? Yeah, go. Yeah,
I'm like overwhelmed, but I'll probably say with that. I mean, number one, you hit Peter Gabriel, so that would definitely be on the list. I don't know if it's considered a pop album, but probably more rock. But Billy Idol's Rebel Yell.
Oh, love it.
That's forever my go-to album from the 80s.
Chris or Jeff?
An album that I just picked up and I showed it in my latest video is I picked up Cyndi Lauper's She's So Unusual.
Yes.
And I'm spinning this freaking record and I'm like, holy shit. Like the first song is Money Changes Everything. And that song is just killer. You've got a song, you got She Bop on there. You got Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Time After Time. That's just a classic song. And I'd have to put that up in there. And you had mentioned Prince. My favorite Prince record is Around the World in a Day. So that's, there's another one for you.
Yeah, that's an awesome one, right? That definitely has to go on my list too. And the one thing I always say about Time After Time that makes it so special is that have you ever heard anyone do a bad cover of it?
No.
It's always fantastic, no matter who sings it or who performs it. It's just the perfect song, perfect pop song.
Actually, I went to an open mic one time and I heard somebody butcher it.
We'll go kill that punk.
Yeah, you ruined
screwing up the.
Jeff, do you have a go-to?
I'm gonna go with Talking Heads' "Little Creatures." I think that's their poppiest album, probably.
That's a good one.
But I love it. I love, it's got "And She Was" on it. "Stay Up Late," which is a quirky little rocker. I love "Television Man." "Television Man" might be my favorite song on there. Is Road to Nowhere on that, or is it on Speaking in Tongues? I can't remember now, but even if it's not, I don't care. I'm still going with Little Creatures. It's just kind of got it's really poppy. It was sort of like their last poppy moment. You had Naked after that, which kind of went into world music, and then they broke up after that. So I'm a huge Talking Heads fan, so I'm going to go with Little Creatures.
What about Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair?
I almost picked that, but I'm so tired of talking about that album. I feel like I every opportunity I get to talk about it. So I mean, there's that album, but I want to talk. I'm sure everybody's like, oh, Jeff's going to talk about either Thomas Dolby or Tears for Fears. So I'm going to say Little.
So the next question is, if you're faced with a huge challenge, what song gets you pumped up to face it? And to me, it's super easy. And it's going to sound weird, but it's a song called Without Light, I Am by Glenn Danzig. It's off an album called Circle of Snakes. And it builds and it builds and it builds. And at the end of the song, Danzig is singing in that crooning voice, and he's like, without light I am, and it's like being without the light of God shining on you. It's like facing the obstacle by yourself, feeling like God is not on your side. And I can't connect with them. I'm not saying I connect with the lyrics, I'm just saying connecting with the emotion that he's singing in. He's singing in such a to me, it's Danzig's most emotional singing performance. You really feel like he is without light. He's without God's light. It gets me so pumped. I mean, I can't even, when I used to work out every day, I played that song on repeat, for 30 minutes straight. It's my jam. And to give Brandon a break, who would like to go next on the song that gets you to face your fears or face your tough obstacle?
People are going to hate me on this one, and I wish Aaron was here because he likes Saint Anger as well.
Heck yes.
But I guess Brandon does too.
Yeah.
There's a song on Saint Anger called The Unnamed Feeling, and it is definitely a top 10 Metallica song for me. And every time I just throw that on in the car, it just gets me going. But the first two tunes on that album as well, Frantic and Saint Anger, they just, I don't know if it's the production of the album, but it and it is a little grating with the sound of the snare drum and everything, but those songs, just the lyrics and the way that James spits the lyrics out, I love those tunes.
Yeah, it's so aggressive, like when he goes into the frantic tick tick and he just like keeps building and he's like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great pick.
What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of a couple that come to mind, kind of again, depending on the mood. And when I think about a challenge, I guess I was thinking more like, physical, like getting ready to work out or, something like that. So I would probably have to say Master of Puppets is probably the one that always gets me pumped to the same level every single time I hear it. That song just never loses its energy, never, as long as you've been listening to it, it never takes a step back. So that's definitely one. Some other funny ones that I may get laughed at a bit. Nowhere Fast off of the Streets of Fire soundtrack. Like, again, that song just gets me completely fired up. And Funeral Hymns by Exodus. I think that's probably my favorite Exodus song. And I think the thing I love about that is it just kind of starts off in this very basic, kind of riff. And the first 45 or 60 seconds of the song is nothing but just a straightforward palm muted head banging rhythm. Like there's nothing fancy to it. There's nothing. Matter of fact, like you see them performing it sometimes live, like they don't even have their fingers on the frets because it's just a G string palm muted thing, and it just gets me so freaking fired up. And maybe Violence by Dope. That's another one I would throw in there too. That song kind of gets me fired up too.
You know what song I heard over the weekend that I hadn't heard in a long time, and it kind of fired me up and gave me that energy, was House of Pain, Jump Around. I was like, I haven't heard this song in forever, but it's a great freaking song. And I was thinking the album is really good too.
Peck it up, peck it in. Let me begin.
If you've never seen it, look up Wisconsin football, Jump Around.
Yeah.
Like at halftime when they play that song, I guess it's like a tradition thing there.
Yeah.
And when you see 40, 50,000 people losing their mind to that song, it's one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I do the announcing for my son's football games, and I do like DJing when I play the bump music also for that, House of Pain, Jump Around, or Sane in the Brain is another one that I love, and it's the clean version, obviously, but those are great ones. For me, it's going to be Careless Whisper by Wham. When that saxophone, the adrenaline I get when that saxophone comes in at the beginning of that, it's just like, I can do anything. But I'm going to pick Van Halen Unchained.
Nice.
That's a good one. That's on that opening riff, and then you get the bass that comes in, and it's just I love that one. It could be a workout song. It could just be, I need to get motivated. I need to get pumped up. I think that's a perfect song for that.
What's another great song too is Green Day, Basket Case. Do you have the time to listen to me whine? I just love that freaking song too.
Yeah.
If we're going to go to a place like that, I have to throw in Winger, Can't Get Enough.
Nice.
Yeah.
That kick in with that, hey, and then it's just that bass the whole time. That
yeah.
You can tell he was the lead singer because like the bass is so high.
Yeah, exactly.
But it makes it groove though. It makes it punch.
It does. Yeah, man. I played some Winger for Carter the other day. It was great.
Nice.
Stephen Nash wants to know. He said, "Can we talk about?" But what's your favorite obscure post-punk? So for me, I don't necessarily know what's obscure and what's not, in the sense that I feel like most of the post-punk I love is popular, but I love the Smiths. Jeff knows that. I love Elvis Costello. I know none of them are obscure. Bauhaus, the normal post punk that I think most people listen to. But do you guys have favorites of post punk?
Well, this is not an obscure band, but it's a band that I didn't ever really listen to, and then I picked up some of their CDs, and I'm like, how come it's taken me so long? Would Wire be considered post punk?
Yeah, Wire's great.
I mean, and again, I'm not a Wire expert, but I have a few of their albums, and I dig it. So
I just found a first pressing of Pink Flag for like $2.
Well, and that just reminded me, Aaron sent me a copy of Pink Flag.
Yeah, it's a great album.
On vinyl, yeah.
Do you guys have some favorite post-punk?
Well, I guess with me, I kind of sometimes get confused of exactly what post-punk is, like who falls under that or not. Because matter of fact, I was just thinking about it now when I was thinking the Jesus and the Mary Chain. It's like one I was thinking about. And I was like, is that post-punk or is that just kind of like 80s alternative and I think sometimes for some people The Cure kind of falls under that too, right? Yeah. So I'll probably have to say those would be my two favorites right there.
Nice.
I might say Sonic Youth.
Oh, great.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Post-punk. I really like Sonic Youth. Daydream Nation, I think, is a fantastic album. But I mean, you can't really go wrong with Sonic Youth. And they were sort of that bridge between punk and grunge, and I think they appeal to both demographics. So I'm going to say Sonic Youth. And maybe they're not that obscure because everybody knows who Sonic Youth are, but.
And they're on the SST label.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Music in the House wants to know, besides the VC, which obviously the VC is our number one source, and our friends, which would be our number two source, where do we go to discover new music? The two places that I go is, one, I search for independent radio stations playlists. I don't follow any radio stations that are owned by a corporation because I feel like they have people that are on the payroll that are going to play songs that they're paid to play. So I look for nonprofit radio stations and see what their playlist is. The other thing that I do is I go to Apple Music, I put in a band, and down at the bottom they list other bands that are similar. If there's one that I don't recognize, I click and I listen to this song. If I like it, I listen to another. If I like it, I listen to another. If I don't like it, I'll look down below and see what other similar bands are. And that's how I discover new music. But the VC and friends are my number one. Everybody in this chat and in this room right now is my number one source of finding new music. I'll turn it over to you guys. What are the ways that you discover new music besides the VC?
Yeah, man, I would say the number one obvious one for me is, working in a record store, and with the number of record stores that we have here in the area, like again, this afternoon, I went into a store and just stopped by, didn't buy anything, but I sit there and chat with the guy for 45 minutes. And through all those conversations, it's always, have you heard? Have you heard? Have you heard? Have you heard? So that word of mouth about just kind of floating around other people that are in the music, that's definitely the biggest way that I discover a lot of music. And again, I go to a lot of stores sometimes just to hang out, not even going necessarily to buy. And then the second thing, again, outside of the VC, would kind of be, Jeff, what you were describing earlier. I do all kind of ear dropping everywhere. It's like, music is floating around. I've even gone as far as to ask someone that was at a stoplight beside me, what is that you're listening to?
That's awesome.
Because it's just like, yes, I'm seeing they're rocking, and I'll oftentimes roll down my windows to try to hear what that person is like nodding and getting so into. And if it's something that sounds awesome and I don't know, I just be like, hey, excuse me, like, yeah, what's that you're playing? And they're always like, oh yeah, it's blah, blah, blah. It's so badass. Like, thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say the record store, and it's funny because I think, Brandon, you showed a picture of Marianne Faithfull, one of her albums. Was it on Instagram?
Yeah.
And I wrote back to him that I have her spoken word album. Yeah. And I heard that at my local record store. They were playing this. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, it's literally Marianne Faithfull speaking poetry over like some new age music. but I was like, I need to have this. So I bought it, but I wouldn't have heard it if it wasn't for hearing it at the record store. But the other thing I was going to say is, this is going to sound kind of cheesy, but the internet, because of Wikipedia, you look up a band and underneath the band, they'll list the members. And then you can click on the member and it shows, of course, all the other bands that member was in. And I'm like, oh, cool. I never knew that they were in this band too. So click it and then you do your research. And I mean, when we were kids, we didn't have that. Now we can look up anything. So that's, I would say, the internet too.
Well, not to sound pandering in any way, but I'm going to say, to be honest with you, Josh, because my favorite bands of the last, 5 years, if we're talking new music, are going to be Lord Huron, they're going to be Dawes, Lucero, who I'd never ever heard of until Josh started talking about them, saying that they were his favorite band. So I would say, just because I watched Josh's channel and, oh, this new music's coming out, or check out this band, or we've done episodes where we've talked about, albums that you would recommend. And, Lord Huron, for me, has been one of the most refreshing new bands that I've ever heard of. And Dawes, I never would have gotten so deep into Dawes if it hadn't been for Josh. Also Aaron turned me on to Eagles of Death Metal. Obviously, he turned me on to Clutch, which I hadn't heard before. And that's why any music that I buy anymore is because of what you guys show or what you guys talk about. Iron Maiden, I've started getting into Iron Maiden. I've started getting into, bands like Metallica, some of the SST stuff, like Descendants or Black Flag, or I know Misfits aren't SST, but that's another band where I never would have even thought twice about them until, you guys were talking about how great they were. And now I've got 2 Misfits albums. So,
nice.
But that's what's great, because I don't listen to the radio. I don't, go on, I don't know, whatever the streaming services are where you can, catch up on new music. I just don't. I trust. I know you guys are all, your listening tastes are impeccable. And so whatever you guys recommend, it's like, well, if Chris likes it, if Brandon likes it, that Jason Isbell album, like shit, I never would have known. I never would have heard of that. That's a fantastic record. So I guess I'm not just going to say Josh, but I'm going to say, it's anything that I see you guys show or VCLT that you send me that I never would have listened to otherwise. I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, the VC is the best. It totally fuels my fire of new music.
Yeah.
So the next question is,
can I tell one just kind of funny story really quick? Probably like the strangest way that I've discovered an album. Is there was some stuff that came into a local shop that I wanted to get. So I went and just kind of grabbed a bunch of albums that I want to take in for trade, and I, take them there. So while I'm looking around, I'm kind of eardropping what they're playing. I'm like, oh, that's a really cool album. I'm kind of digging it. And I go up to the counter. I'm like, dude, what's that you're playing? And he goes, it's that new Pornographers album that you brought in for trade.
Oh,
wow. I was like, what the heck?
Nico Case was a new Pornographer.
Yes.
Yeah, but it was just so, I just bought a bunch of albums that I'd found on sale, and I just kind of skipped through them really quick to get a feel. And I was like, I don't really dig it. So decided to go sell it. When it was actually sitting there playing all the way through, I was like, holy cow, that's awesome. I want to buy that. What is it? Like,
and you owned it already.
Your album that you just brought in. It's like, oh, I guess I'll keep that one.
Well, and another suggestion I would have is, if you're interested in new music, download Shazam on your phone and go sit in a music bar. Just listen to music that they pump in, and you might find something you like. You never know.
So the next question is a great one from your Vicar of Vinyl that asks, what's your favorite album tour that you actually saw? So you loved the album and you saw the band touring on that album cycle. There's so many. For me, seeing Danzig 3 or Danzig 4 tour, seeing Typo Negative Bloody Kisses, Pantera Far Beyond Driven. I've seen Dawes on almost every tour. Lana Del Rey I saw in a bunch. I'm just gonna go out and say Danzig 4 because I was in the front row. I know it was a very exciting moment for me, but it's almost an impossible question to answer because they all mean so much to me. But do you guys have a favorite album and tour that you saw while they were promoting that initial album?
Yeah, well, I will say I'll jump in first because I can tell you right off the bat, I had not heard this album, but I went to this concert. I was so moved. I mean, it was a religious experience. It was Kid Rock. It was Rock and Roll Jesus. I went there and I'm like, yes.
I know you're lying.
Fuck that guy. No, but I'm going to say Depeche Mode Violator. I saw them on the Violator tour. And not that I wasn't a big Depeche Mode fan before, but I think seeing them live and just the entire experience, they got these huge video screens where they're playing softcore porn on the back screen, as they're playing. And just a really, that for me was like the first real, I mean, not that I hadn't seen concerts before, but that was like where I was really like, I'm buying the t-shirt, I'm buying the CD, I'm totally now, all in on Depeche Mode.
Awesome.
Well, one of the recent concerts I saw Overkill on their Wings of War tour. My first concert was Poison for the Open Up and Say Ah album, which is great. And also, this is a big one for me. I saw Johnny Cash touring. What's the second album he did with Rick Rubin?
Unchained.
Unchained. Yeah, I saw him on the Unchained tour, I saw him in Niagara Falls. It was an amazing, amazing show.
Oh, yeah. That's a grail for me, man. I wish I'd seen him.
Yeah, no kidding. Two that kind of jump out for me, I would say runner up would be In This Moment when they were touring for Beautiful Tragedy, their first album. Excuse me. They actually opened for Rob Zombie that night, but to me, that's absolutely their best album. And of course, when a band is just getting out there, they're raw, they're hungry, and you got all of that in that performance that night. So that was awesome. But number one would have to be, of course, my favorite band's Godsmack. And I've seen them touring on like 4 different albums. But when they toured on their album 4, I think that was probably the best 3 or 4 concerts I saw on that tour. Because even though their albums that came after with Oracle and 1000 Horsepower and so forth, there were good songs on that and all that kind of stuff. But if I was making a greatest hits album for Godsmack, it would pretty much include just those first 4 albums. So all those concerts on that 4 tour were just everything that you would want to hear by Godsmack with nothing being left out. And those were just awesome.
Which of their first 4 albums did you first discover them and then realize, like, this is my favorite band ever? Was it like their debut album or was it a couple albums down the line?
It was actually, I got their debut album because there was 2 songs on it I thought were great. And I got the album and I listened to it. And then the album kind of faded away for a few years until my girlfriend started playing it. And I was like, what? I mean, she pulled it off the shelf one day and I was like, I don't know who this is, until the song, the Whatever, kicked in that I liked. I'm like, oh, it's the Godsmack album. And then for some reason, after that 2-year mark, it just kicked in. And their second album had already come out. So I just immediately went out and grabbed that. And it was just one complete obsession after that.
Yeah, because I always find it interesting. For me, my favorite band has always been the Beatles. I've been listening to them since I was like 9 years old. And I'm sure, I think for most people, yeah, like I like Beatles or I like Kiss when I was like younger, but now they're not my favorite band. This is my favorite band. Like, and I don't mean to speak for Aaron, but I know like Aaron's a huge Beatles fan. He's a huge Kiss fan, grew up, I think, listening to the Beatles, and I'm not sure when he got into Kiss, but I know now, like, his favorite band is Clutch. you know, for you, I'm sure your favorite band when you were growing up is not, you know, I mean, obviously Godsmack, you didn't grow up listening to Godsmack.
Right.
And Josh, you didn't grow up listening to Lucero, you know, you probably
Right.
had a favorite band and then now it's Lucero. So I'm just always curious, like, you know, your absolute favorite band now, you know, was it a band that you grew up with, or was it a band that you like just discovered within like the last 10 or 20 years? And,
Right.
you know,
What's funny, Jeff, because you mentioned that, like, I grew up listening to the Beatles, and my father was Beatles obsessed, much like you. Like, you and my father would get along so great, you know. Stones, Beatles, that's was the majority of music that he gravitated to. So I think that it never was my favorite band, just because to me that was always my father's favorite band. Like, how can that be my favorite band? It's my father's favorite. My father's the biggest Beatle fan in the world to me as a child. You know, now I realize that everybody feels this way. You know what I mean? They're all, everybody, not everybody, but most people are huge Beatles fans because their music is so, it's fantastic. So I absolutely love the Beatles, but I think there's always a part of me that's like, the Beatles are my father's band. And I love that they're my father's band. You know what I mean? Like, it's special, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
yeah, well, it's funny because when I was like up until like high school and even up, you know, through high school, the only band I ever bought, I only bought Beatle records. Anything else that I had in my collection was stuff people bought for me. I had like a very narrow, like, I'm just buying Beatle records. And one day I was in the record store buying a Beatle record, and somebody's like, "Oh, you like the Beatles? You must like Led Zeppelin." No, I don't like Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin? Are you kidding me?
Gary.
And then I got to college, and like everybody's listening to Led Zeppelin. And I'm like, fine, I'll listen to Led Zeppelin. I'm like, holy shit, Led Zeppelin's great. And then I started buying like all Led Zeppelin. I'm like, oh, you know, and even my family were like, "What are you doing listening to Led Zeppelin?" I'm like, Led Zeppelin's great, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
So,
the funny thing for me growing up is I don't think I ever really had like an absolute favorite band, because I was so much more of a song and style kid, more so than a band. So, you know, I could have something that I would listen to all the time, and all my friends identified me as like you know, you're a huge Sammy Hagar fan. Like, you listen to VOA all the time. But if they would have asked me name one other Sammy Hagar album, I'd have been like, no clue. You know,
Real Lock Box.
you're right. But it was like, you know, those 4 or 5 Iron Maiden songs. I listened to them and just beat them into the dirt. But any of their other albums, I have no clue. It was like that with Metallica. It was like that with all the new wave stuff. So I got so attached to just one song that moved me, or 2 songs that moved me. I never latched onto a band and bought album after album after album, which may be why I didn't have a favorite back then.
So I love this next question we got, Jeff, because they give you a shout out in it. Jeff has to answer it. They said, what is the heaviest record in your collection? And that includes you, Jeff, with like exclamation points. I would say for me, it's tied, and it's Death Leprosy. I just feel that album, that song Pull the Plug, to me is like the heaviest song in the world. And NWA Straight Outta Compton. To me, that was always the heaviest fucking record. Like, when I was a kid and people used to say, "What's your heaviest record?" I'd be like, I don't know. Might be Merciful Fate, might be Public Enemy. You know, It Takes a Nation. Like, to me, those first original gangster rap albums were the heaviest fucking shit that I owned. I used to hide it from my father because he would have never allowed me to listen to that shit. So yeah, like, I think that to me, Death Leprosy, NWA Strata Compton, 2 heaviest albums I own. How about you guys?
On vinyl, I'd probably say Slayer, South of Heaven.
That's a great
That
one.
album is freaking heavy, but not only heavy music wise, but I think it's heavy lyric wise as well. And as a kid, it scared the crap out of me when I was listening to the lyrics of that album, because there's a lot of stuff in there that your parents didn't want you to listen to, and that your parents didn't agree with. And it was freaking, it put goosebumps on my arms. And when I listen to that album now, I still get goosebumps on my arm. CD wise, I have a band called Morbid Angel, And I saw them open for Motorhead, and Morbid Angel is extremely heavy. They're more of like in the kind of like death metal vein. And then I'm also going to say DRI. DRI is freaking heavy. Like the albums like Thrash Zone and Crossover. Those are some heavy albums.
Jeff or Brandon?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say kind of the three that came to mind, somewhat jumping around genres. Napalm Death, Scum. I think that's definitely one I would have on the list. Just kind of with all that blast beat stuff they do. I mean, that album, just from the moment you put it on, it just hits you. And, you know, even like the 7-second songs like The Kill and stuff like that. Like, I cannot believe you hit your drum that many times in 7 seconds kind of thing. I think just from a sound perspective of heavy, Core by Stone Temple Pilots is still one of the heaviest, thickest, like punch you in the gut albums that came out during the grunge period. And strictly from a heavy standpoint, in my mind, is as heavy as anything out there. And one that maybe kind of falls on what you're saying about NWA, and this may be more of the song, but Bad by LL Cool J. Yeah, to me, that's definitely like the definitive, what I refer to as power rap. Like, again, it's just so much punch and so much energy by how he's delivering the lyrics in that song. Even the video, when you see it, like, you're tired after watching the video just because of the way that he's jumping around and popping and locking and screaming. Like, it's a ton of energy in that song. So
along those lines, I've got to give a shout out to Ice Cube Predator. That was the first Ice Cube album I ever bought. Those beats on that album are freaking thick and heavy. Yeah. And Ice Cube's delivery on that record, wow. Yeah, that is a heavy freaking record.
I have a friend that's hardcore metalhead, no rap albums. He has one, Ice Cube Predator. And if I walk up to him right now, you know what he'd say? Step in, use my steel toe as a weapon. Yeah. Like, he knows, like, that's an album that we like. It's like, yes, dude. Like, I was so happy to get him into rap. You know, like, it's a heavy album.
It is.
Know? Yeah. Jeff.
Yeah.
Answer.
Probably the Outfield Play Deep.
Yeah.
I don't know, you laugh, but like, honestly, before, like, I got in with you guys, probably if I had to say my heaviest album would probably have been something by Black Sabbath, and then, you guys started sending me, like, I got Taken by Force, Scorpions by Chris, I got Loudness and Dokken from Josh, I got Wasp from Aaron. Aaron has sent me a bunch of, just a couple months ago, he sent me kind of like a heavy metal care package, as it were. And so, I guess I'm not sure, because I don't know that I'm the one to judge what's the heaviest. If I had to guess, I would say either the Death Angel CD that Aaron sent me, or Kill 'Em All by Metallica, which he sent me, and then I picked up on vinyl because I loved it so much. So either Metallica, Kill 'Em All, or the Death Angel album that Aaron sent me. Is that fair enough? I mean, is that like?
Oh, yeah,
great,
definitely.
Well, you had mentioned Black Sabbath, and I gotta pull out two riffs. The first riff is Symptom of the Universe. That is one of the heaviest riffs ever. And the other one is off of Master of Reality, Into the Void. Yeah.
Yes.
That
you're gonna say.
That's like the blueprint of metal. Yeah, Brandon and I are on the same.
I know, like, let me guess, because I know you're gonna say this. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I do love that, though, like, and that's what really changed music. I mean, I love the 80s because, I was at that 80s concert the other day with Poison and Motley Crue and Def Leppard, and Poison was so happy to be there. You could feel their excitement, and they're singing Don't Need Nothing But a Good Time. And there was a 15-year-old girl in front of me dressed like she was from the 80s, and she's singing every word. And it's like so fantastic. But you think about that. The same time that song came out was the same year that Metallica was doing thrash metal, Slayer, Death, NWA, Public Enemy. you know, there was some heavy music going on at the same time as this joyous pop song. And that's what I loved about it. The 90s, I love the 90s music, but it seems like it all became dark. It didn't have the balance of the Poison. You know, like there's a lot of people that thought Poison was ridiculous in the 80s. I remember it, you know what I mean? But at the same time, the world needs balance. You know, like it can't all be Slayer, even though I love it.
Well, I was going to say too, the term heavy, like I could argue that there's two Cure records that are pretty heavy. Pornography is a heavy freaking album. And also Disintegration has, I mean, listen to Fascination Street, just the darkness and heaviness of that whole record. So heavy, I mean, there are some heavy jazz records as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or not cool.
Ready for this question? This is going to be a tough one. Mike Scott Dispense says, what is the Grail album you're looking for? For me, Bloom by Beach House, out of print and can't find one anywhere. So, Mike, I think for me, it's very difficult because a lot of my Grails are shit that's so obscure, I'm never going to find it in a million years. Like, there's an album called I, Napoleon by a glam metal band that is impossible to find. It was pressed in like one country in 1992. You know what I mean? Like, the odds of me finding this thing are slim and none. But I will tell you that a lot of my Grails have been released over the last few years, like the Four Horsemen. That album, everybody, if you've never heard the Four Horsemen, it was produced by Rick Rubin. It is a fantastic Black Crowes blues style album, rock and roll album. You'll love it. I've gotten that album. I've gotten Chris Isaak with Heart-Shaped World. I've really gotten so many of my Grails over the last few years. It's been fantastic. But if you said to me, your number one Grail right now, would probably be Badlands, Voodoo Highway, and there's no chance of me finding this thing. Maybe I'll find it one day, but it's so obscure. I just can't imagine finding it. All right, guys, what is your number one Grail right now that you're looking for?
I'm going to say for me, Beach Boys' Stack O' Tracks. It was an album that was released in 1968. And the interesting thing is that, you know, the Beach Boys are known as a vocal group. Their harmonies are sort of their stock and trade. And they released an album in 1968 that was purely instrumental. They wiped the vocals from, you know, like 14 of their most popular tracks. And the idea, and it was Capitol, it was just kind of like a cash cow. Capitol was trying to make money off the Beach Boys and put out this album like you can sing along with your favorite Beach Boy hits, and it's just strictly the instrumental tracks, and so few copies were ever pressed because, as you can imagine, people are like, well, I'm not going to listen to a Beach Boys instrumental album. What are you, crazy? And so it's very rare, and I mean copies are going for like, you know, $60, $80 on Discogs. Never, ever seen it out in the wild, not even up on, like, you know, when you have the albums displayed high up on the shelf, never even seen it there. To get just a decent copy, even just a VG, I'll even take VG minus of that album, but because it's so rare and I'm such a Beach Boys fan, that would have to be the number one Grail for me.
Jeff, I've looked for that album ever since you visited and told me about it. I'm constantly on the hunt for that album for you. I would be more excited than finding my Grail if I found that thing for you.
Well, I appreciate it, but I really
you got it, man. Chris or Brandon, do you have a number one Grail that you're on the hunt for?
Do you want to go, Brandon?
Yeah, I'll go. Again, we're not thinking about money and trying to find the most expensive thing you want, but the one album that I would just be most happy to have in my hands would be an excellent to near mint copy of Seal's 1994 self-titled album. That's the one that has, you know, Kiss from a Rose on it, which well, I always say was the big song off of it, but definitely not the best song off of the album. But with stuff like Bring It On, Dream and Metaphors, Prayer for the Dying, I mean, that album is just like just an emotional tidal wave. And it was never pressed in the US. I think it was only UK and Brazil, I think, were the only two places that pressed it. And, you know, an excellent to near mint copy is probably like 200, 300, actually about $300. So it's not ridiculous, but I just cannot get my hands on a copy.
All right, let's all chip in for Brandon for Christmas.
Yeah.
Chris, what about you, buddy?
I'm looking for an album called Double Nickels on the Dime by the Minutemen.
Masterpiece.
Yeah, and I've got it on CD. I've got it on cassette. I'd like to get it on vinyl. It was on the SST label. SST was reissuing a bunch of stuff a few years back, but now they've stopped. So even the reissues are hard to find. Like, I'll take a reissue, or I'll take it doesn't need to be an OG press, but it's just a seminal punk record from just a killer band.
Nice. Now, JT says he has Stack O tracks, OG, that he scored at a thrift store.
Oh.
So, JT, you could make Jeff Witcher's year. You can make it. If you ever want to part with that bad Larry, we have a seller. I'm telling you right now.
Does JT knows I'm looking for Double Nickels on the Dime too. JT, have you found that album? Because I know he's looking for it as well.
Jeff, did you hear that? JT,
I'm sorry, I had to get my charger. My laptop's about to die.
JT has Stacko tracks. He found an OG copy at a thrift store 12 years ago. I'm trying to make this happen. I am like, JT, we love you. How can we make this happen? Now, Music and House says, I'm looking for a Jellyfish split milk. I'll tell you that Jellyfish is releasing a box set, but it's all 7 inches. Now, Jeff, if you've never heard Jellyfish, they're going to be like your new favorite band. Like, they're from the 90s, but they're right up your alley, your type of music. I totally recommend it. The Jellyfish reissues need to happen. They're just like, my brother is very much into the same music as Jeff. I said, check out Jellyfish. And he's like, oh my God, this is like my new favorite band. I feel the same way if Jeff were to listen to it. So yeah.
Like JT, God damn it, JT finds the best stuff. I swear to God, he finds the best stuff at thrift stores. It pisses me off. Like, I'm glad for him. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, obviously. But like, of course he found it. Like, Josh is going to find Stack of Tracks in the shrink with the hype sticker at Savers for like $1.50.
But I'm going to... I will send it to you, Jeff. I promise you I will send it to you. I will send it. Brandon could be I sent Brandon that Frank Sinatra as quick as I could.
Yeah, it totally did. That was awesome.
That was amazing. I know.
It'll be yours.
All right, we got obviously Love Chat 1XYZ, best adult dating site. Is that a question or is that a...
Yeah, man. So
I'm interested to know what it is.
I have to hide that user on our channel.
So, Swedish WB, who's asking some great questions, or she is asking, or he is asking, I don't know who it is asking, if you had to do a 1-hour lecture about any band or artist, what would you do it on? To me, it would be easy that I would choose Glenn Danzig because I love the Misfits. I love Samhain. I love Danzig. I feel like my knowledge of Danzig I could easily speak an hour about it. Even though Danzig at this point is not my favorite artist, I know so much about the 3 levels of his artistry that I could easily speak about it. How about you guys? If you had to give an hour lecture about any particular band or artist, who would it be?
I don't even know if I go band or artist as much as I would give the hour lecture about metal. Just because I still feel that's like one of those genres that even those that think they are the gurus of music and things like that just don't seem to quite understand. Even to this point, they still don't seem to get it. Like what drives people to it, why it's so powerful, why metal fans seem to be so fanatic and so committed and lifelong. And I just think there's a lot of people that aren't into metal that still don't quite understand that connection with that type of music. So that's probably what I would talk about for an hour or so, is trying to get people to relate, or help them to relate, I should say. They don't have to, but help them to maybe see it. Yeah, you never want to force anyone. I mean, you can like what you like. That's
you must like metal.
You must.
I would I'd talk about Michael Nesmith. I know you guys are sick of me talking about him, but I feel like I could really talk about him when he was in the Monkees, and then I could shed some light on the Monkees and how I feel like they should be appreciated more than they are. I could talk about how Michael Nesmith had a bunch of solo records post Monkees, how he developed the video, the idea of the video for MTV. I just think he's an interesting person. His mother created liquid paper. I don't know, just an interesting guy. He's one of the forefathers of country rock. So yeah, I could talk about him for a while.
Nice.
Yeah.
Jeff, people are making predictions, but go ahead. What would be the band that you would pick?
Scritti Politti.
I mean, the topic that has always been near and dear to my heart has been, how music progresses and which decade has shown the most progression in rock and roll. And I don't know if I could limit it to one artist, but I think there would be 3 artists that I would feature if I were giving a lecture. And I would say the decade that has shown the largest leap in musical growth, without question, has been the 1960s. If you look at what was on the radio or what people were buying in 1960, 1961, and what people were buying in 1969, it is incredible. I mean, we're talking like Frankie Valli. We're talking about, like just sort of like
Mitch Miller.
Insubstantial, like Runaway by Del Shannon, in like the early 60s, and Jan and Dean. And then, 1969, you've got Led Zeppelin, you've got Black Sabbath, you've got Creedence Clearwater Revival, you've got the Rolling Stones coming out with some of their best albums, you've got Jimi Hendrix Experience. Like, there is absolutely no way in 1960, 1961, you could have predicted that would have been how the decade ended. And you name another decade where you've seen that amount of musical growth. And the 3 artists that I would probably feature would be number 1, the Beatles. That's a no-brainer. Number 2 would be the Beach Boys. And number 3, surprisingly, or maybe not, would be the Who. Because if you look at the My Generation album, they're doing R&B covers. They're doing very pedestrian kind of, pop songs, like A Legal Matter. The Kids Are All Right, My Generation. And then, 1969, you've got that Tommy, the rock opera. 1971, you got Who's Next, which is an amazing album. So I would just, I would argue, and nobody's going to convince me otherwise, that there's never been a decade which has demonstrated more growth, progressive growth, than the 1960s. And I think it's perfectly illustrated by the Beatles, who, in 1963, you've got Love Me Do, Please Please Me, 64, I Want to Hold Your Hand. And then in 1969, you've got Abbey Road coming right off the White Album. The Beach Boys, in the space of, 1963, they're releasing Surfer Girl, Surfing USA, Surfing Safari. And in 1967, you're getting, what would have been the Smile album. But even if you look at Smiley Smile, it's got Heroes and Villains, Good Vibrations, progressive stuff on that record, which is just mind-blowing, Pet Sounds. And then with the Who, releasing stuff like My Generation, then only a couple of years later, you've got the Who Sell Out, which is one of the greatest concept albums of all time. And then following that up with a single like Magic Bus straight into the Tommy album, which is such an amazing record. So that would be I feel like I've already given the lecture. I've been talking like an hour now.
I wish you were more passionate.
Yeah, I know. It's like, geez, That reminds me of a suggestion that someone in the VC made one time, which I would never have the courage to do. But he said, you know, you have a really big collection and your taste is very diverse. What would be really cool is if you actually looked at the release date of every single album that you have and actually organize your collection by release date.
Wow.
He was like, you would just have kind of like the history of music laid out in a, and I was like, yeah, that would be pretty darn cool. Of course, I couldn't find a damn thing, but
Yeah.
it would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So guys, here's a question from me I've been waiting to ask. So obviously we have some huge releases coming out. We have Pink Floyd's Animals, so we've waited 4 years for the remix, which sounds fantastic. We have Alice in Chains' Dirt. We have Chris Isaak's San Francisco Days. There's rumors that by the end of the year, we may have the complete Rooftop concert on vinyl. What is the release you're most anticipating before the end of the year? Even if it's a speculation, you can do that. For me, I know that my heart says Chris Isaak because I've always wanted San Francisco Days on vinyl, but I'm excited to hear Alice in Chains' Dirt. I love the music on vinyl pressing, but I feel that album is very long and there's a lot of compression on it. I'm hoping that we hear it like we've never heard it before, and I feel like it's one of the best albums of the 90s, so I'm going to go with Dirt. But what are your guys' biggest release that you're excited about between now and Christmas?
Well, I just saw that there's a band called Off, and Keith Morris, who was one of the original singers of Black Flag, he went on to form the Circle Jerks. He has been in a band called Off, and they're releasing an album in September called Free LSD. And kind of excited about that. I have their last couple records, and they're cool because they kind of harken back to that early 80s punk. So that should be a pretty exciting release.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good choice. Brandon or Jeff, do you have a release that you're excited about for the holidays?
I will say without equivocation the Animals remix that is supposed to be coming out next month. Because and people have called me crazy. People have said you're out of your mind, but I love the Animals album. My biggest complaint, I don't want to say complaint, my biggest issue with that album has always been Nick Mason's drums have always sounded very weird to me in that mix. And when they released the Dogs remix just a few weeks ago, it's like, yeah, the drums don't sound weird anymore. They don't sound overly compressed or whatever effects they did with Nick Mason's drums always just bugged me on that album. That's the only album where I've ever felt like, God, Nick Mason's drums just sound weird. And so I'm very much looking forward to that Animals remix because I love the Animals album. I'd love to hear what they've done with it. I like that interesting variation on the cover art that they've done. So for me, it would have to be the Animals reissue. And the Dogs just sounded freaking amazing. The first time I ever heard Animals was on cassette. I bought the cassette, played it, and I'm like, just something, the production on this, and I don't know if it was the quality of the cassette or something, but it was like, I like the songs, but I'm just not crazy about the production on this. And then I got it on CD. I was like, well, that's a little better. And then the remaster, what's a little better? And then I got the vinyl remaster. Well, that's kind of a little better, but it's still, I feel, my issue was always with the drums. And I feel like with this remix, maybe they finally corrected that. And we'll see. But I love the advance single that we got for the song Dogs, because that's my favorite song on that album. But
I can't wait for the Animals. I don't even know why I'm buying it because I already own 2 copies of it, but I'm like, I've got to get it. Brandon, how about you, my friend? Do you have a release that you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely have to put the Alice in Chains on the list, like the same reasons that you mentioned. But then I think too, the new Megadeth. I mean,
yes.
Anytime there's a new Megadeth or new Metallica album, that's always just like yes, we got one more before some tragedy happens. I mean, these are old guys. They've been around for a long time and all of that. So I think every time you get a new album by them, that's a celebration that they're still around and still doing it. So the Megadeth, I'd like to say the Ozzy, but I'm not as excited about what I expect from Ozzy these days.
Right.
But that's still the same thing. It's like, I don't care if it's a mediocre album. Give me one more Ozzy album. That's a good day, no matter what.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And not to hearken on this subject, because maybe it's going down the wrong path, but I don't like the idea of Metallica trying to cancel Metallica. I feel like, not to go down this road, but I feel like the youth feels like people, even if people have past sins, like they can't reform from those. Like there's no rehabilitation. Like the people that, and I don't even think Metallica did anything that bad, but I can't stand that people trying to cancel Metallica. They donate so much money to charity and do so many great things.
But even if they didn't donate money to charity, they're one of the greatest metal bands ever. Like, and really, they drank a lot of alcohol. Who didn't back in the day? You know what I mean? So
right.
They have a member of their band that is not white. That's the easiest way to say it. If they were really racist, would they have members of their band that, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think James Hetfield's a racist. Did he do stupid things? Probably, but yeah, I don't get it.
Again, and this is the one I'll definitely jump in on, because it really pisses me off to no end either. And not even just with Metallica, but this whole concept of taking the society and the norms that you're in and trying to go back and judge someone that's not and wasn't in or is not in the society that you're in. Like that in and of itself is just like total bullshit. It's like getting a person who's never lived on Earth, and then you go put them here tomorrow and you're going to judge them by everything that you feel you've known, learned, and all of that. And like that totally pisses me off, because even most of the people that may be judging them, it's like you weren't born knowing what is right or what is correct. It's like someone has been beating that into your mind. So how are you gonna jump on somebody else if the same thing wasn't beat into their mind? All that stuff just, it you can kind of probably see it really gets under my skin, because I take it back to a lot of the other things that we're having issues about today. And it's like, stop taking your 2020 bullshit and perception of the world and trying to put it on somebody who was living in the 1800s. It's like, that's just freaking stupid. It's absolutely stupid.
Completely agree.
Pisses me off. And in all likelihood, if you're a 20-year-old today in 2020 and you were born back in 1800s, you would be thinking the exact same damn way they did back then. Like you're not special or immune to your environment. You think, but what you've been taught. Period.
Right. When we're evolving as a culture, right?
Right.
So like we evolve every day, and our culture evolves. We can't go back in the past. We can't cancel people that are dead.
Right.
That's why we got it.
Can I just say before we get into the next question, like Brandon and Chris totally representing with those shirts you have, like the Doolittle Pixie shirt, Brandon.
Oh yeah.
Like knocking it out of the park. Chris Prophy with the Mike Nesmith. There could not be a more obscure shirt than the goddamn Magnetic South Michael Nesmith shirt. Josh, what do you have?
Pink Floyd, Animals.
Amazing.
Nice.
I always feel like, I'm showing up to the like the black tie dinner in, like a wife beater t-shirt or something like that. Like I got nothing. You guys got the most amazing freaking t-shirts on. I just want to acknowledge that. Like props to you guys for showing up. You got your game face on, you got your t-shirts on, you got your rock and roll on.
But what's funny is I've been wearing this t-shirt all day. I mean, this is my normal wear.
Yeah.
And it's not like, and you guys know me, but it's not like any of us put this shit on and like, okay, now I'm gonna be Chris Prophy musically obsessed or JC Flipside.
Right.
Like that's who we are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's just cool. Like if I ran into you guys at like an amusement park or anywhere else, like a store, I'd be like, holy crap, that guy is awesome. Like you just don't see people walking around in public in a goddamn Pixies Doolittle shirt or a Michael Nesmith shirt. If you're lucky, you'll see somebody in a Pink Floyd Animal shirt, you know. Like for me, I walk around here, I can see 50 people a day that have a Michigan State shirt on. I got nothing. You guys, I just want to acknowledge, you guys come prepared. I come totally unprepared. It's not even musical what I'm wearing. I feel like I'm letting the team down here. But I just want to say, if nobody else is going to comment on it, like, you guys are awesome and your attire for the video.
This is the other thing too, is that, and we've all said this before, but we haven't changed since we were 15 years old or 14 years old. Yeah, we're bigger in some ways, some of us in other ways than others, but we've lost some hair, but we're still sitting around talking shit about music. Like when Jeff and I went to Josh's place and we were sitting there listening to records, like we could have been 15 years old. We had our band t-shirts on and we were spinning records, and we're still doing that in our late 40s and 50s. So I want to give props. I want to give props to all of us.
Yep. And those in the comments that are just like us. And by the way, Brian Reynolds says that he's excited about the new Billy Idol, and I am obsessed with the new Billy Idol. I have listened to that new song at least 10 times today. It is fantastic. Billy Idol is at a new level, guys. Like, he's releasing these EPs. I don't blame him. Like, think about this. I thought about this today. Billy Idol released that EP earlier this year, right?
Yeah.
Everybody loved it. He probably is like, hey, man, I've got these. I can make a full album and there's some filler, or I can just release these EPs where every track is amazing. And I think that's what he's doing. And his new song is one of the best he's done since Rock the Cradle of Love. I really feel that way.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The one thing I wish he would do with those EPs, because this is what happened with the last one he did. The EP was fantastic. And then you go on YouTube and you see these videos where he did acoustic versions.
Yes.
It's like, those were amazing. Like, why wasn't that on the B-side of that EP?
I totally agree.
Fantastic.
Or instead of putting the same songs on both sides, make it 45 RPMs and give us better fidelity. Give us one way or the other.
Right.
The next
play.
Yeah, he's fantastic. And Steven's fantastic. So there's a question from Detroit Stars that said, what was a record that you bought that you were embarrassed to bring to the cashier? So I've never been embarrassed. I have bought some New Kids on the Block records from Michelle, my current girlfriend. My ex-girlfriend and me were into the same music, so it was very easy. But Michelle is into boy bands, and sometimes it's easy. Like, I have no embarrassment buying anything. I really don't. Like, and there's a lot of things me and Michelle agree with, like New Edition and stuff like that. But the New Kids on the Block, that's not something that I would listen to. And right now, there's 4 New Kids on the Block albums in my collection because of Michelle, including the Christmas release, which apparently is very rare. And I'm like, Michelle, do you realize how rare this record is? We could sell it for some serious cash. But she doesn't want to sell it. All right, guys, have you ever been embarrassed by a record? Is there anything in your collection?
Dude, I just bought this today. Anne Murray, her 1987 album Harmony. Like, there she is, all like glammed out.
Is she in black leather?
No, it's almost like a kimono. I don't know, but listen, I mean, I don't give a shit. I'll buy an Anne Murray album and you can give me shit, but I really don't care what you say.
Were you attracted to Anne Murray back in the day? Did you have like kind of physical attraction?
You know what I think it is about Anne Murray, and we all have these memories. I mean, when I was growing up, my parents listened to Anne Murray because she was popular back when, in the 70s or whatever, 60s, 70s. And my parents were also listening to a lot of Dolly Parton back then too. That's why I sort of have a soft spot for Dolly Parton. But I think there's something about Anne Murray's voice that just brings me back. So it's nostalgic. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's just certain artists that, I don't know, I guess you could call them guilty pleasures maybe, but
it makes you feel.
It's funny, the same way with me. Harry Chapin, my dad was a big Harry Chapin fan.
Yeah.
And like, Harry Chapin is not typically an artist that I would gravitate towards. However, it's the nostalgia of hearing Harry Chapin. And it's like, yeah, like make fun of me all you want, but for me, that's what I grew up listening to. That's one of the artists that, for me, I remember when I hear Harry Chapin, I feel like I'm, 8 or 9 years old again.
And I'll tell you this, for every so-called shitty album that you think I have, I'll show you 15 other albums that'll kick your ass. So, it all depends. I mean, this is just one of my maybe not so popular albums.
Dude, I support your Anne Murray addiction.
Thank you. But then I'll shove Black Flag, Slip It In down your throat. So,
and I guarantee you, any album that Josh has ever been embarrassed to show up to Purchase Street Records to buy has been an album he was buying for me.
I go up there now. He's like, "This is for Jeff, isn't it?" That's what he says. Yes, it is. It's for Jeff. I show him the text sometimes because sometimes he's like, "Why are you here again?" The other day I went to Purchase Street because Aaron's like, "Can you see if they still have that record?" So I went. He's like, and Roger's like, "Why are you here again?" I'm like, "Look at the text. It's for Aaron. It's for Jeff." Mike's Got the Spin says, "Have you guys heard the Wet Leg record?" The Wet Leg record is awesome. I don't own the vinyl, but I streamed it about a month ago, right when the full album was released, and it was really good. Have you guys listened to that band Wet Leg yet?
I haven't heard it yet.
Yeah, write it down. Go check it out. Wet Leg.
I've heard of Taco.
It's good. Swedish SB says, what is a band you can't get into because of the vocals? For me, it's Scritti Politti. Okay. So for me, vocals don't really bother me. I know, like, it's funny because me and Aaron sometimes will talk and Aaron will say, I can't get into them because of the vocals. And I'm like, really? Because for me, vocals never bother me. I listen to King Diamond. You know what I mean? Like, where his vocals, I could see could be, people could be turned off. And I love Tom Waits. He's my favorite. So I've never, ever been turned off by vocals, but I have been turned off by bad lyrics. But have you guys been turned off by any vocals where you couldn't get into bands?
Like, for me, it's usually not because the vocals are so bad, kind of like what you were saying. It sometimes boils down to, I just don't feel those vocals are the best fit for that band. But if you move those vocals somewhere else, they could be okay. And like, one of those examples for me is Lamb of God. It's just something about that. His vocals with kind of what they do musically, they just don't quite match up for me. It just seems like a better vocalist could be in there. But from a metal perspective, he is a good vocalist that could fit well into a band. I just don't think Lamb of God's style matches his vocals.
For me, it would happen. I'm sorry, Chris. Don't hate me. Billy Corgan, I cannot fucking stand. Sounds like having a bowel movement every time he sings. And that would have to be, because I can forgive a lot. Like, listen to me. I love Scritti Politti. I love the Smiths. I love Rush. Those are some of the most polarizing vocals. The Cure. I love the Cure. I do. I like Michael Stipe for whatever reason. And I like instrumentally Smashing Pumpkins. I can get down with, but I've just always like Billy Corgan's vocals. For me, it's always been one band. Like, if not for his vocals, I would be a bigger Smashing Pumpkins fan. And that's just me.
I hear you.
Yeah,
a lot of people have that feeling, I think.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I think they're one of the greatest bands like ever, especially from the 90s, it is so easy to understand how you feel that way about it. Like it's so easy to see.
But what's great about it is that it's Smashing Pumpkins right away.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, and it's sort of like Tom Waits. There's no hiding Tom Waits. I mean,
Right.
Exactly.
or
What
Dylan.
I'm never gonna say Smashing Pumpkins suck, Billy Corgan. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
Like I respect anybody who loves Smashing Pumpkins, like I do. I totally get it. But for me, you know, especially when they released I think the moment for me where it was like, I can't take this, was when they did that cover of that Fleetwood Mac song.
Oh, yeah.
Landslide.
Yeah, it was like, oh my God, like I just cannot, I can't, I just can't. But I respect Smashing Pumpkins. You like Smashing Pumpkins. I'm totally down. It's just not for me. Like you don't like asparagus. I love asparagus. I mean, it's like one of those things. Like I respect Smashing Pumpkins are an amazing band. They're a fantastic band. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to say I hate Smashing Pumpkins. But I just can't take Billy Corgan's vocals. That's all. I respect them as musicians. I respect them as a band. It's just the vocals are just not for me. And if you say I love the Smiths except for Morrissey's vocals, I'm right with you. I totally get it. I would never I get it. I understand. You know.
All right. So, guys, here's a question. Not in the chat, but it's a question I'm thinking of. What band that members, or at least the majority of members, are still alive, would you like to see a reunion album of? What are you thinking?
These are great questions, by the way.
Yeah. I think for me,
Yes.
Pink Floyd is obvious, right? That would be one. I think Roger Waters and you know, I mean, I know the majority are not with us, but I still think that the two brainchilds, Gilmore and Roger Waters, are still alive, so that could happen. I think that, and Chris, did you just say Kiss?
Yes.
Yeah, Kiss would be a good one. All four members are still alive.
They're all still alive.
Right.
And look at Ace. Ace is putting out great records, and the last few Kiss albums have actually been pretty good. I don't know about Peter Criss now. I don't know what his drumming is like now, but it would be kind of cool to have one more album by the four of them.
Even one more song.
One more song.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say Kiss or Sabbath.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't mind seeing the Sabbath get back together and do it.
Well, didn't Tony Iommi play on the new Ozzy single?
He did, and
Yeah.
they performed together the other day.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yep. Jeff, do you have a pick?
The Police.
Oh, they're all still alive.
Yeah.
That would be a good one.
That would be a fantastic one. All right. Let me see if there's any other concerts. Are there any concerts this year that you are looking forward to? So yes, I am going to see Lucero, and I'm going to see Wasp. And it's the first time Wasp has toured in a very, very long time in the United States. And I'm actually thinking about taking Michelle. So I may be single. If just anyone out there wants to know after the concert, hit me up. So yeah, what do you guys think? Any concerts that you're looking forward to before the end of the year?
Well, I'm going to see They Might Be Giants in September. And
Oh, great.
I'm also going to see Henry Rollins' spoken word show in September. And then in November, I'm going to see a folk artist named Janice Ian in Woodstock. So 3 totally different concerts, but should be fun.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, I've never seen Testament before, and they're going to be coming through the area towards the end of this year. So that's going to be one I'm kind of excited about.
Nice.
Yeah.
Jeff, you going to see any shows?
No. I'm not. I don't know. I really yeah, I'm sorry. I just
That's
don't
okay.
on my radar.
See, he's not going to see. He saw.
Yeah.
I would love the concert I regret not seeing would have been Tears for Fears.
Yeah.
If they came around like anywhere like Ohio or, Illinois, Windsor, I might try and catch them, but I kind of missed the bus on that one.
Vinyl Richie says he'd love to see a Smiths reunion. I mean, I think all Smiths fans would love that. I think it's highly.
Yeah, that's like, that'll never, ever, ever happen.
Yeah, Morrissey's turned down millions.
Yeah.
They offered him millions to tour with the Smiths. They said that they would do separate buses, separate hotels. He's turned down.
The Talking Heads.
The Talking Heads. Some of these people, it's like a vendetta. They just
REM.
Yeah.
Well, I'll throw this out too for Vinyl Richie, but what about Black Flag? Get Henry Rollins, Greg Ginn, Kira, and Bill Stevenson back together.
Yeah. Henry Rollins does not want to tour anymore, just spoken word.
Yeah.
So Craig asks, which AC/DC do we prefer, Bon Scott or Brian Johnson? To me, it's Bon Scott, but I love both of them. So saying Bon Scott, it's like, I don't know. It's so hard. But Bon Scott's just always been my favorite. Well, how about you guys?
Brian
I
Johnson.
like the Gary Sharon AC/DC era personally.
Oh, man, I haven't heard that record.
Yeah, AC/DC 3. You haven't heard AC/DC 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've always been a Bon Scott guy. Nothing against Brian Johnson, but I love those early AC/DC albums.
Yeah, can't go wrong with any of them, but I have to go Johnson just because that's when I discovered AC/DC. So Johnson is what AC/DC was for me when it was planted in my brain.
And an underrated album is Fly on the Wall.
Yeah, I mean, I love both eras. I'm not trying to take away from Johnson. I just, like Jeff said, I think Bon Scott, to me, I just love those songs so much. Yeah.
Ball Breaker, that's my sleeper.
What is?
Ball Breaker, that album, heavy, awesome album.
Flick of the Switch.
Yeah.
Another great one.
Absolutely. Well, here's a question. And I was thinking of this because if you have a daughter, who would you rather her date, Bon Scott or Brian Johnson?
They got another daughter. Don't have to worry about that.
Because I was thinking about that more in terms of Van Halen. Like, would you rather your daughter date David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar? And as much as I think Sammy Hagar is a big pussy, I think probably Sammy Hagar.
Exactly. If it's your daughter, yes, he's worth billions.
Yeah.
He sold his tequila. Please date Sammy. Seems like a gentleman.
At least Sammy sings about love from time to time.
That's right.
How do you know when it's love?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, but it lasts forever.
Oh man, this Swedish FB is asking some very difficult questions. What is our favorite of the first 4 Led Zeppelin albums? That's an extremely difficult question. I hate doing this because
I'm going to say it, and I know this is cliche, but I'm going 4.
I'm going
to go 4.
It's the one I want to listen to the least right now, but the greatest of the first 4 albums is 4.
Dude, it's Black Dog, Stairway to Heaven, Rock and Roll, Going to California, When the Levee Breaks, Misty Mountain Hop, 4 Sticks. What am I missing? The one with Sandy Denny.
Well, you sold me. 4 is the best.
4, dude.
Battle of Evermore.
What? Battle of Evermore. And if I have to go number 2, and that came out wrong.
I don't think there's any. I don't think any rational person could debate that Led Zeppelin 4 is not the greatest of the first 4 albums. Yes, it's been overplayed on the radio, but if you take an objective approach to those first 4 albums, Led Zeppelin 4 blows the rest of them out of the water. It just does.
3 is my second choice.
Yeah, the first album, the debut album, is strong, no question. It's got some great tracks on there. Dazed and Confused, Communication Breakdown, Good Times, Bad Times. I mean, yes, it's an amazing album. The second album, you've got Whole Lot of Love, you've got, Thank You, you've got all the, Ramble On, all that stuff. But it's just not Led Zeppelin 4. The third album is a little bit more folky, not as much heavy, but the fourth album is a perfect balance It's just an amazing, it just is. You may be sick of it, but that doesn't diminish. The fourth album is just the best. It just is.
It's perfect. I remember when that last time I saw Kiss, and when they're turning the stage over and everything, they're playing music, and they freaking put Black Dog on, and it was like it's a totally new experience of just hearing it in the crowd and everyone kind of belting it out. And it's like, that is freaking amazing. You're so burnt out on it.
Yeah, it's like Black Dog, rock and roll, discussion over. I'm sorry, it ends right there. It just is.
But all 4 albums are great. We're not trying to take away from it. All 4 albums.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but four is the best.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what about the first 3 Kiss albums? What would be your favorite of the first 3 Kiss albums?
All right, so we're looking at the first album, Dressed to Kill and Hotter Than Hell, right? Okay.
Yes. Not in that. It went first album, Harder Than Hell, then Dressed to Kill.
Right. Dude, you have to go Kiss 1, the debut. You have to go.
I almost have to I'm gonna look at the tracks or just to.
I mean, Dressed to Kill would be my second favorite.
I mean, Hotter Than Hell has got some fantastic songs, but the production, I know a lot of people love the production. For me, I feel like every song on Hotter Than Hell is better on Kiss Alive.
But Hotter Than Hell also isn't as focused as the first 2. I feel.
Hotter Than Hell is the second. You mean
No, I mean, Hotter Than Hell is not as focused as the other 2, I should have said.
The other 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Dressed to Kill. I'm going to go with the first album is my favorite. But the other 2 are great.
Yeah, I'm going with the debut.
Yeah, I'm going with the debut as well. I mean,
the debut is a freaking greatest hits.
Right. It's a great album.
I mean, I would concur. I think the debut, you got Black Diamond on there. You got 100,000 Years. You got Cold Gin. You got, Strutter.
I even like Love Theme from Kiss.
I would say, if you took number 1 out of the equation, even going from Hotter Than Hell to Rock and Roll Over, I would say for me, I'm a huge Dressed to Kill guy. I love that album, but when you enter the debut album in, there's just so many songs that are still a part of their set list today that are just rock and roll classics. That debut album is so hard to rank an album above until you start getting, a little later into their discography. But if we're talking the first 3 albums, I think it's the debut hands down for me.
Yeah.
And it seems like most people are agreeing with us that the first one, Black Diamond, is a fan favorite in our chat box, and I would have to agree with that. It's probably my favorite Kiss song, or at least one of my favorite Kiss songs.
Well, what about the first 4 Sabbath records?
Holy shit, Chris.
Just getting harder.
So friends, for anybody who's taking notes out there, we are debating Sabbath 1, freaking Paranoid, Master of Reality, and Volume 4.
For me, it's going to be Master of Reality.
Damn, that is hard.
I gotta look up track listings here for a second.
I'm gonna go not looking at track listings. I love that first album so much. The first Black Sabbath album. I listen to it all the time. It's just, I love all of them. I love all of them. So I'm just gonna go with the first one just because I gravitate towards it. Spooky as fuck. It's an awesome album. Awesome album cover.
Go, Chris.
I was just gonna say, I gotta go with Master of Reality.
You got Sweet Leaf. Sweet Leaf is a brilliant album opener. You got Lord of this World, which is fantastic. You're throwing so many grunge bands.
Into the Void,
Children of the Grave,
Solitude. Here's my thing against Paranoid, and I just think it's, unfortunately, it's got Iron Man on it. And
I don't know why.
Did I just piss off a bunch of Black Sabbath fans?
I don't know why they made me laugh so hard, but
I don't know. The song Paranoid 2, I don't know, but it opens up with War Pigs, which is killer.
I mean,
And
all
Electric-
4 albums are killer.
Here's my thing against the debut, Josh, and I agree with you. I love the debut, but they sort of lose me on that last part with like a bit of Finger and Sleeping Village and Wicked World and all that. I feel like it sort of meanders a little bit. Like it opens up really strong. You got Black Sabbath, The Wizard, Wasp, NIB, and all that shit.
Yeah.
But the second side, it loses me with that bit of Finger, Sleeping Village stuff that they do.
I get it. Yeah, completely. I get that. And you know what? Volume 4 is probably better, or Master Reality is probably a better album.
I hear you, though. I hear you.
I love all 4, though. It's like picking your favorite kid.
Volume
Right.
4 is my least favorite out of the 4.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of people who think Volume 4 is their best album.
I think I would actually pick Master of Reality as being my top pick as well. And I think one of the things that does it is if you take all the songs from those first 4 albums, or the songs that they did later on, like with the reunion tour and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I would probably pick something other than Master of Reality if they performed the songs the way they did in the reunion.
Right.
Like, with Nib and Sweet Leaf and just like everything they did, because it was just so heavy with the way they did it at the reunion. And I feel like out of those first 4 albums, Master of Reality was when they actually discovered that deep, down-tuned, heavy, feel and sound that they were going to come about. Because because again, Nib is an awesome song, but it just does not compare to the way they did it on the reunion tour. And that heaviness just didn't come until Master of Reality. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm kind of rambling.
Yeah, no.
It makes sense. Yeah, totally.
Sabotage will always be my favorite. But
How about the first 4 Simply Red albums?
ooh, that's tough.
I just
I
go.
don't know.
I just go
No, I'm
greatest.
just kidding. Another good one would be first 4 Van Halen albums. Which one would you choose?
Oh, yeah.
I love Simply Red, by the way. I'm just going to say that.
Me too.
I think he's awesome.
I love all 4. I love just about every Van Halen album, including the Sammy Hagar album, so people know I'm a Hagar fan. I'm not trying to say I know David Lee Roth is better, so don't calm down, everybody. But I would say that
first 4.
Fair Warning is probably my favorite of the David Lee Roths. But Van Halen 1 would be a close second.
I'd probably have to say Fair Warning too, because it's got Unchained on it, which is one of my favorite Van Halen songs.
Yeah, that's a great freaking track.
Mean Street.
Yeah, I mean, and that's an argument that I will never win. I've always said the debut album. I mean, you got Running with the Devil, you got Eruption, you Really Got Me, Ain't Talking About Love, I'm the One, and that's just side 1. And then you got Jamie's Crying on side 2, Atomic Pump, Feel Your Love Tonight, Little Dreamer, Ice Cream Man, On Fire, and you're gonna fucking tell me that Fair Warning is a better album? Get out of here. But people do, and so whatever. I'm just kidding. Like, you like Fair Warning better, you're out of your mind. But I
You're full of crap.
that Fair Warning with its 8 measly songs or whatever, 9 measly songs is better than the debut album. You can do it with a straight face. I will tell you to go, but like whatever. Like it's all, it's all subjective. I get it, but
Yeah, I'm kind of like that same boat where you have to go with Van Halen 1, but if you ask like what's your favorite sound, guitar tone, all of that stuff from the first 4, I go to Fair Warning.
Sure, like we can have that conversation. We can talk about guitar.
Song for song, you got to go 1.
Guitar, theatrics, and all that. But we've got what do we got? We got 9. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we got 9 songs on Fair Warning. Mean Street, yeah, great song. Dirty Movies. You gotta tell me that's better than anything on Van Halen 1. Sinner Swing, how about it? Hear About It Later. Unchained, yeah, great. Push Come to Shove, So This Is Love. Sunday Afternoon in the Park, you're gonna fucking tell me that's better than anything off the debut album. You're out of your fucking mind. Maybe maybe. I mean, people have this hard on for Fair Warning, which like whatever. But I'm going to tell you, you know, out of the first 4 albums, that first debut album is freaking amazing. And, you know, you want to come at me in the top, like whatever, but I'm telling you, if you're going to be honest with yourself, listen to the debut, listen to Fair Warning, and it.
Well,
Jeff, I don't think anybody's coming at you. No one's debating.
I know. I'm just teasing. I'm just playing around. Like whatever you like, Fair Warning. You're gonna say Fair Warning. You're out of your. That's fine. That's cool. I'm just saying. I'm very passionate about the first Van Halen album. So
I love Van Halen,
and I don't mean like you like Fair Warning. You know that's great. I'm glad for you. But for me, I just love that debut album. I think I just so many.
I think it is. I think it is too that, you know, like Van Halen 1's always played on the radio, right? So when I think my favorite, I think probably the one I play the most, which that's probably why, you know, my choices change, because I look for the albums that I'm not hearing the songs all the time. But you're right, Van Halen 1 is fantastic. Now, Zepp Pro wants to know, would we attend Woodstock 99?
Oh,
that's
no.
A definitive no.
No.
Here's the deal, guys, is that I try to avoid the festivals. To me, my ideal concert is in a theater or a small venue. I will actually pay more. I've seen big bands in small venues that I've paid crazy amounts of money for because I want to be as intimate as possible. I don't like the idea of seeing 100 bands playing for an hour each. I'd rather see one band play for 2.5 hours. That's just me. I'm not trying to knock anything else, but I'm just not into giant festivals. I used to go to Ozfest every year, but I was also younger. So would you guys go to Woodstock 99?
No, I mean, who wants to wade through mud and shit and, you know, not have enough water and food, and the water bottles are like $20 a piece?
It's like saying, would you want to ride on the Titanic?
Yeah.
Well,
and
I'm
it's funny.
Sure it was a beautiful ship until it fucking went down and
I know Jeff
died.
Well, Jeff did a video on Woodstock 99, and you know, obviously when Woodstock 99 came out, I was 2 years out of college, but I didn't really know too much about Woodstock 99. And then when I watched the documentary, I was like, holy shit, I'm glad I didn't go. What a train wreck.
Yeah. And like the only thing worse than not seeing your favorite bands, it would be going to see your favorite bands and all these jackasses around you screwing it up.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That would be the only thing that would be worse than actually not seeing them.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. Like, I've never been to a festival like that. I don't know what it's like to spend 3 days, you know, camping out, hearing a bunch of bands, but just like looking at the band lineup, like, I don't like Korn. I don't like Limp Bizkit. I'm just a marginal Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. I don't care for Jewel that much. You know, like Sheryl Crow, maybe, you know, it'd be cool to see Willie Nelson, but that just was not like the late 90s. I feel like were such a crap period for music. You know, by and large. I mean, I'm not saying like across the board, anything released after 1996 was garbage, but would I want to see them live? Would I pay for the privilege of being abused, paying $12 for water, and, you know, being in like piles of shit everywhere? Like, no, thanks.
We could probably be making out with a lot of girls, though.
Yeah, maybe, you know. But, you know, if I want to see a bunch of topless women, I'll go watch Benny Hill reruns.
Now, one thing I will say I would have loved to have seen in Woodstock 99 was Korn doing Blind.
Yeah, that performance was crazy where the crowd is all going up like it. Yeah,
it was like it was so packed and so many people that it literally looked like, you know, water forms by molecules coming together and it forms water. It's like everyone was so packed, they just became a sea of water. And I mean, that riff freaking kicked in. That would have been worth seeing that moment, but still, it would have been worth going.
I think I'd want to watch it on closed circuit TV. I don't think I would have actually wanted to be there. I mean, I admit, like, you know, everybody you know, like the Korn and Limp Bizkit, everybody who was like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like, great, if that's your thing. But just personally for me, you know, I'll watch it on TV. I mean, same for me, like with sporting events or whatever, like, you know, I'll watch it on TV from the comfort of my recliner. But, you know, I don't know. It takes a lot. I mean, I'm just a crusty old man, you know, I'm 46 years old. And I just don't go out to a lot of concerts. And see, now the laughter starts. Nobody.
Yeah. Well, I'm
whatever,
thinking,
like whatever, you know, like I'm a crusty old man. I just like, you know.
Well, I'm doing the math.
Well, go ahead, Chris. I'll go after.
No, I was just doing the math in my head because I know I'm going to be 48 in October, and I'm thinking I thought Jeff was a little bit older than I am.
All right, I'm 52. Goddamn, are you happy?
Well, you look damn good for 52.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I'm asking for. All I'm asking for is, could he be 46? Yes, he could.
Of course.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's not like fantasy land to think, could Jeff be 46? He could be. It's completely reasonable to think that he could.
If you went to Woodstock 99 right now, Jeff, you could make out with any girl you wanted to. I guarantee it.
They'd be throwing themselves at me, right?
They would be.
Exactly.
They'd look at my Michigan State t-shirt, they'd be like, that guy knows what's up. We're going to go totally get down.
Like, I bet he can buy us water.
Yeah, he can afford the water.
I got it right here.
Water. Well, you know, talking about how bad Woodstock was, like, what were maybe 2 or 3 of your best concert experiences of something that was just kind of like, this was fantastic?
Did I say Kid Rock? Kid Rock was amazing. I did see Kid Rock, by the way, and I'm not proud of it.
Well, I saw Rush live, and they played, they had an intermission in between their sets, and they had no opening band. It was just Rush, but it was amazing. I already said I saw Johnny Cash. I saw the Grateful Dead live, which was amazing. You know, but I've also seen people like Gordon Lightfoot, Mary Chapin Carpenter, Joan Baez. So I loved all those as well. So yeah, I mean, between the 4 of us, I think we've all seen a lot of amazing shows. Slayer was awesome live.
Then there any specific like awesome moment in one of those shows that really stands out of like this moment was really cool?
Yeah, there was a couple. Oh, go ahead. You go first.
No, I was just going to say not an awesome moment, but a moment where I realized I'm kind of a dork. When I was at the Slayer show, of course, the mosh pit started. And I was sitting up in the chairs, like I had my popcorn. I was eating popcorn watching Slayer. And I'm like, oh, I'll meander down to the mosh pit. Maybe I'll check out what it's all about. But I knew that I just did not fit in with those people. Like, I like the music, but I am not cool enough to be in the mosh pit. So
I beg to differ, but okay.
So for me, the moments that stood out: Elliott Smith, front row, small club, $13 a ticket. He was on the Figure 8 tour, and he plays Can't Make a Sound, and at the end of the song, he plays this very fast guitar riff. And I could just feel like everything I love about music at that moment transcended through me. Like, it almost brought me to tears. Like, it was such a musical experience. That was one of the highlights of my life, like that experience. And then he passed away just a few years later. But that was one. And Tool Anima tour at a small club in Providence before the album came out. And they had oversold the concert. So there was actually a riot going on outside. We got there super early to see the opening act. And I just remember not being able to move because they had packed the club so much. If there had been a fire, we all would have died. But hearing them play Eulogy and that long intro that Tool does, and it building and building and building and building to the point where Eulogy kicks in, by the time he got to that line where it's like, come down, get off your fucking cross, the crowd was so fucking nuts. It was pure insanity. It was one of the greatest concert experiences of my life. Those 2 stand
That's
out.
Cool.
I'm going to cheat a little bit because I did not actually go to this concert. My brother did, but he went to Soundgarden's last concert at the Fox Theater in Detroit. And he was texting me while the concert was going on. They just played this song. He's like texting me the set list, you know, and he's like, this concert's amazing, and just everything that they're playing. And then obviously he got home from the concert late, you know, and I got up earlier because it was a weekday. I think the concert was, it was on a weekday or whatever. And I got up earlier because I had not been at a concert. And like, I look at, always on my phone, I look at the news feed, and it was, you know, Chris Cornell passed away. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, seriously? And I thought it was like a heart attack or something. So I texted my brother, like, Chris Cornell's dead, dude. Like, what the fuck? And he got up and he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, no, like, he's dead, you know, like, it just said he passed away. And my brother just couldn't process it because he had just been at that concert. He's like he just couldn't wrap his head around it. Like, I just saw them. He's dead. Like, what are you talking about? You know? And just like being in that moment, like, holy shit, you know? And I thought, I know it like wasn't even the realm, like, oh yeah, he committed suicide. At that point, all we knew was that he was dead. And I thought maybe it was like a heart attack or something natural. And only it was later, like, no, he killed himself. But, you know, I just remember like my brother being stunned, like, but I just saw him. Like, how can he be dead now? You know, it was just like one of those, like, you can't even believe it, you know?
That's crazy. Yep. I know like two of the ones that stand out for me was like the first time I saw Kiss, which was only like 10 years ago. I never saw him in the early days or anything like that. So, you know, I'd been obviously listening to him for years and all that. And all of a sudden I'm seeing him live. And it was at the end in the finale when the, you know, all the pyro starts going up and, you know, they all go up on the rafters and the drum set rises. And then those two curtains are hanging down with the gold lions on them.
Yeah.
And it was just like sitting there for a moment. And it was almost like a little surreal. It was like, holy cow, I'm in the Alive 2 cover. It's like from way back in 6th grade when I first walked in that store and opened up that gatefold to Alive 2 that blew my mind. And I bought the album not knowing anything about it. And like now I'm actually sitting right there in the midst of the cover. And I mean, that was kind of a really awesome moment. And the other one, oddly enough, would be when I went to see Styx, REO Speedwagon, and Ted Nugent was opening for him. And I was a little kind of like, I'm not excited whatsoever to see Ted, but if we can just get through this. But I mean, Ted came on and put like one hell of a show. And when he did Cat Scratch Fever, which is a song I didn't really care about up to that point in time, one of the best rock and roll performances I've ever seen live was seeing him perform Cat Scratch Fever. Just, it totally changed my entire outlook on him.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
So guys, we have two questions in the chat that I think we should probably get to. One, people were talking earlier about their favorite Aerosmith album and also favorite autobiography. For me, my favorite Aerosmith album is probably Rocks, but the second album is very close second. And my favorite autobiography, even though it's probably ridiculous and not really true, is either Motley Crue The Dirt or Johnny Cash Cash. How about you guys? Favorite Aerosmith album, favorite autobiography by a musician?
All right, go ahead and smack me, but my favorite Aerosmith album is Permanent Vacation because I came into them in the 80s. So that's still my favorite. And a favorite autobiography, kind of more of a memoir. Of course, my favorite band's Godsmack, so it's going to be Suddenly Irma's The Past We Choose. And I just like that so much because basically he's just telling all the stories about how all the songs came about based on his life experience. So he explains each song in great detail. And my favorite band, my favorite album by them at the time. So that was an awesome autobiography or memoir, I should say.
Awesome.
Well, my choice is even going to be, you know, well, you had mentioned Permanent Vacation. I mean, I don't know how popular my choice is going to be. I'm picking Draw the Line because it's got two of my favorite songs on it, Draw the Line and Kings and Queens.
Love it.
It's just a great album. And nothing against the other albums. I think the other albums are kick-ass, but I just love Draw the Line. Yeah, I mean, autobiographies. I loved reading that Cash biography. That was a great one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I've read so many. Michael Nesmith wrote one that was good, and trying to think about some other ones too. Oh, I'm trying to remember her name from Sonic Youth. The female singer in Sonic Youth.
Yeah, it's a tip of my tongue.
Yeah, but she wrote a book too about her time in the band and everything. I know I can't remember any of this stuff, but it was the female artist in Sonic Youth. She talked about her time, and it was interesting because I would imagine it would have been tough to be a female in a punk band during that time, just in a male dominated, genre like that, and being in some of those small clubs where people were throwing stuff up on stage and slam dancing and everything. So it was kind of an interesting read.
Kim Gordon?
Yeah. That's the one. Yeah.
I knew it was Kim, but I couldn't think of the last name.
Yeah.
Jeff, how about you? Favorite Aerosmith, favorite autobiography?
Probably Elton John, actually, because it was so self-deprecating, which I would not have expected, but it's just so funny because he writes it in a style. He's always like making fun of himself or, in certain situations or certain things that happen. But, Elton John, I love him as an artist. I've always grown up as a huge Elton John fan, but his autobiography, it's filled with such humor and such, he's got such kind of a caustic kind of a wit, but he's always making fun of himself or, kind of like being self-deprecating. And, it was kind of refreshing because I always thought like, oh, well, he's not going to let his guard down. He's not going to, admit any, kind of missteps or anything that he had. But it's a very funny biography. If you've never written it, I think it's called My Life or something like that, but it's a really entertaining read.
Awesome. Jeff, do you have a favorite Elton John song? Is there one song that really is, you think, his masterpiece?
Yeah. Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding has always been my favorite. I love that song. I think it's, the best of, not only, there's very few instrumentals that keep my attention, that engage me.
Yeah.
And I think that Funeral for a Friend is just, and having seen it live, it's like, one of those, I can die now and I'll be happy having seen that, and then, the whole Love Lies Bleeding, medley thing. That's always been my favorite. If there's ever one Elton John, if I could only ever listen to one Elton John song for the rest of my life, it would be that one easily.
I love that song, but I'll tell you that My Father's Gun and Mona Lisa, what's that song called?
Mona Lisa's and Mad Hatters.
Yeah, those two songs, and Funeral for a Friend. I mean, all three of those are fantastic, but they battle for me. How about you guys? Do you have a favorite Elton John song?
Well, I was going to say Mona Lisa's and Mad Hatters, and I had heard that song not through Elton John, but the Indigo Girls do a live version of that tune. I'm like, this is a great freaking song, and I found out it was an Elton John song. But yeah, that's always been a favorite of mine.
It's such a great song. Have you heard My Father's Gun, by the way?
I have. That's off of the Tumbleweed album, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love that one too. I mean, it's very similar to me in terms of the Mona Lisa and Mad Hatters, just like a grand, I love when Elton John does like a grand song, like something that's epic, you know, that's one of his epic ones. How about you, Brandon? Do you have a favorite Elton John song?
Yeah, for me, my favorite Elton John song is Sacrifice.
Oh, I love it.
That song is amazing. And I think the one thing that makes it so amazing for me is that, forget about the lyrics. Don't even pay attention to what he's saying. The way he's delivering those notes and changing the proper term for it, the tone between the high and the low or whatever of his voice. It's just everything emotional that can come out of Elton John comes out of the way he delivers that song to me. And it gives me the craziest goosebumps every time I hear it.
Well, and he's a great one for that epic song. I mean, you go to Burn Down the Mission or Someone Saved My Life Tonight or Madman Across the Water, where it's just this epic cinematic masterpiece. He's just such a brilliant composer. You've got Bernie Taupin's lyrics and, Yeah, I mean, it's just so hard to get away from because, I mean, growing up with that music, it's sort of like everything that after Elton John, everything that I've listened to or appreciated has always been measured against, Elton John or the Beatles or the Beach Boys, in terms of how great is the song.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, we have been asked what our favorite Bowie song is. I mean, I know it's cliche, but I'm going to say it. Life on Mars. It's my favorite.
This is going to sound cheesy. I love China Girl.
It's a great one.
I love that. I love the video where like she tosses up the bowl of rice or whatever. I just think that's a great freaking song.
I love Cat People. I just love so much Bowie,
Yes.
but yeah.
Oh,
Do you guys have heard Bowie?
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna say one of my favorites right now, because you really do have to break it up in like, what's your favorite early 80s Bowie? What's your favorite late 80s Bowie? Oh geez. Actually, wait, go ahead, Jeff. I need to think a bit more.
I'm gonna say, and maybe it's a little bit cliche. I like Diamond Dogs.
Love it.
I love that song.
Yeah. It's a masterpiece.
I'm gonna go with My Turn to Drive off of Toy.
Okay. That's a good one, man. That's interesting.
That's me. It's kind of a fairly new one to me, just like really the last year or two. But it's like, to me, there's something about that kind of sums up the stuff that he does that was so great early on and what he did in the 80s. And yeah, I mean, it's so easy to go back to Ziggy Stardust and I don't know. That's too difficult a question. So I'm just going to go with that one off of Toy.
All right. So next question is cover song that you think is better than the original. All of these, I like the original or love the original, but I really do feel Metallica's Bread Fan is better. I feel that Sinead O'Connor's Sacrifice is better, even though I love the Elton John. Yeah, I will say that those two songs, I feel that the cover is better. Metallica Bread Fan, Sinead O'Connor's Sacrifice, even though I both love the originals.
I'm going to say Johnny Cash Hurt.
Well, that's a great one.
Yes.
Well, Johnny, and we've said this before, but Johnny Cash had a tendency, like once he covered your song, it was his song. So
we know to say David Gray, Say Hello, Wave Goodbye, which is a cover of a Soft Cell song.
Well, I will go listen to that. I have not heard it.
Yeah. And thanks for saying that one, Chris. That takes stress off. I'm going to go with Gary Jules when he covered Mad World from Tears for Fears.
Oh, so good. Yeah. I love the Tears for Fears, though. But
yeah, it's fantastic. But every time I hear that Jules deliver it, it's like, Tears, you guys missed the boat on that one. That was a ballad, that song, and Gary just perfect.
Even the members of Tears for Fears have said they've loved that cover.
Really?
Yep. And what's funny is Aaron was talking about Anthrax's cover of Parasite, and Kiss came out and said that they loved Anthrax's version. So I think that's really cool when you get a band that's like, hey, we love, like, I actually like Garth Brooks' version of Hard Luck Woman. Like, I don't know if it's better than the original, but I love it.
Well, I was going to talk about Metallica for a second too, because when they did Last Caress, they coupled it with Green Hell. So they put Last Caress and Green Hell together. I don't know. I love the Misfits, but Metallica did a kick-ass version of those two tunes.
Yeah, they definitely did. Metallica does some great covers where they really make their own. Am I Evil? You know what I mean?
In a Jar.
Yeah.
You can say Jimi Hendrix is All Along the Watchtower.
Yeah.
That's definitely one.
Well, isn't Hey Joe an old blues tune too?
Yeah, I mean, listen to the Byrds version and listen to Jimi Hendrix's version. Jimi Hendrix's version is like light years better than the Byrds version, even though the Byrds version was a cover, but still.
How about Harry Nilsson with One, right? He didn't write that
Yeah,
song.
or even Without You. Without You.
Or Without You, right.
It's way better than Badfinger's version.
Exactly. Yeah, Without You. That's fantastic.
Or the Beatles' Twist and Shout better than the Isley Brothers, you know?
Hey. No, I'm joking.
I love it. Typo Negative, Summer Breeze.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Actually, that is a good one. I think the Isley Brothers' Summer Breeze was better than Seals and Cross.
Yeah.
Both fantastic though, but you know.
Awesome. All right, that looks like it for questions. I don't know if you guys want to call it a night or you want to keep going.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm starting to get tired.
Yeah, anybody got suggestions for next week? Somebody I think mentioned a comment like, what's next week's topic gonna be? Any ideas?
Give us some suggestion, guys. Hopefully we'll have Aaron and Gary back with us next week. Let's see what we got. Someone, Mike's Got the Spin says, when you say Nothing at All by Keith Whitley, Alison Krauss's cover is killer.
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah. I'm not a Misfits fan, but I like Metallica and their treatment of their songs are too. Yeah, cool. John, the Dark Wizard Room. So that. Any suggestions for next week, guys? Put it down below.
I really like this Q&A. I mean, I feel like we could almost do another version of that if we had Aaron and Gary, you know, part of it, and they could.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing another Q&A, especially if we get Aaron and Gary and get their perspective. Some different questions, and if you guys want to think about questions throughout the week, that would be fantastic.
Well, what's nice about a Q&A is I don't have to pull records out.
Yeah, exactly. Music in the House wants to know if we've done movie soundtracks. We've done it, but I think that was before Brandon joined. But you can ask us about movie soundtracks next week, and we can talk about some of our favorites.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say majority of mine are from the 80s.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, guys, thank you so much for everybody who joined in on the chat tonight. I really appreciate it. You know, I appreciate all your questions, and I hope we have, you know, entertained everybody, and I hope we've satisfied everybody and their, you know, answers to your questions. But we'll be back next week. Hopefully we'll have Aaron and Gary with us. And thanks again for another great Thursday.
Bye, guys.
All right.